Okay, it is time to get the nonsense started for tonight. And I have got an actual, panel of people with me today.
Hello.
Hello. So, first off, I want to
Hi, Mike.
clarify
Oh,
what we're going to be judging these games on. These are not hard and fast rules, more just organizational stuff for my benefit. And thank you for the bonk, Tora. And I will have stuff on screen while we're discussing things. I am not expecting to read out everything, just because that would feel very awkward to me. I want this to be as conversational as possible. That said, get the actual tiers up here. Thank you for the head pats, Cry. So, as you'll notice, a lot of stuff on here, like Mystic Quest, that isn't a mainline game. Criteria for, quote, main is just because there were a lot of games between...
Beautiful.
Thank you, Cry. There were just a lot of games, side games that, had a presence.
Oh my god!
Had a presence that didn't have a number. So, Tactics and Mystic Quest are on here. Chocobo Racing is not. Also, because just stuff like Chocobo Racing, I don't have a whole lot to say. It's a fine game. But, with all that said, let me get some actual music that I have prepared for a change. That's loud.
Now I'm a little motivated.
There we go. So, as we're talking, I'm going to be cycling through music appropriate to each title. So, that said, I did forget that Mystic Quest was on there at first. So I don't have a song queued up for that. I will fix that, though. So, also, these are all very much subjective opinions, but I am correct. Just, in case...
Sounds complicated.
It's very complicated, yes. But I am correct. It is a highly subjective but scientific process. And we will get to that, Cry. We will get to that, don't worry. So first up, it's FF1. And... FF1 is... interesting. Because, the NES trilogy are the games I've spent some of the least amount of time with. In that I have beaten them all once. FF1 and 2 specifically were the PSP versions, and I did the DS version for 3. And, FF1 especially, very held back by its hardware in terms of graphics. But, at the same time, upgrade those into the later releases, they look really good based on the same designs and everything.
Yeah, I've seen the PSP version. It looks super good.
yeah, I prefer the PSP version.
I've only played the Game Boy Advance version.
Yeah, the Game Boy Advance versions are very similar to the PSP, just less resolution. And yes, I know the slides don't show on Discord, but, I can only pick one thing to show on Discord, and I've got different windows and everything, so... Anyway. But yeah, just... This is just mainly a testament to how strong the designs in FF1 were. I tried to get fancy on these first few slides. I learned my lesson, and that stops, I promise. So we don't have any more of those awkward clicks.
Mhm.
Anyway, music. Very simple, but iconic. I mean, just listen to this. It is very much held back by the hardware still, but it's still like in absolute testament to Uematsu's compositions that they're still used in virtually every game going forward in some way or another.
It's very recognizable.
Yes. And plot. There really isn't much of a plot for FF1, if we're being truthful. Like, I've always seen it, likened to a D&D campaign, with each, city or dungeon being its own session. So there's a lot of, go here, and then this happens, and then, and all like that. That said, that's a very cozy design, I feel like. And it sets a lot... Okay, yes, D&D is very plot-heavy at times, but again, this is limited to what they could do with the hardware. But yeah, characters are very one-note as well. Garland really is the only character with any kind of backstory to him, and even that is a stretch. That said, these are not, knocks against it. Just they were doing the best with what they had at the time, and what they could/knew to do. And then there's the gameplay. Oh baby! Let's talk about the gameplay on that NES version. Because half of it didn't work.
Yeah, I was hearing some Comely Johnny's review on it, and throughout it was just like, the thief, poor fucking thief.
Yeah, okay, so the character differences are purely stats. And, basically who can use magic. And the thief is supposed to make the party run away faster, but that doesn't work. Any weapon that has, a special ability, does extra damage to X type of enemy, that doesn't work. That just does not work. The Werebane does not deal extra damage to werewolves or whatever. Making so much of the treasure you find in dungeons just glorified self-fodder. Hi, Nyx. But the future versions of the game do fix that, but it was just a very, basic but strong foundation as far as that goes. Once you fix the bugs in the GBA version and the PSP version, it's a very competent thing. That said, the spell charges system is straight out of D&D, and it's one of those things you either take or leave. I vastly prefer the MP system that, 2 and other games have, but... So, overall, the design has held up super well. Music remains iconic. Story's basic, but definitely has a feel of, just a one-on-one D&D session sort of thing. But it's nothing big, but it's a strong foundation.
Yeah, I played through the game once, and that was enough for me.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing with it. Also, I would like to draw everyone's attention to the titles of the tiers because I put far more thought into coming up with these quotes than I really probably should have. But they're all like the S, A, B, C, D, and F, but I just decided to attach quotes to them because fuck it, I like that sort of thing. So,
Also, one of these does not look like the others.
what are you talking about?
The B.
What's wrong with wanting to be a blitzball when you grow up? Like,
Not from the quote.
look, I couldn't think of a good quote with a prominent B word in it
That's fair.
until that popped into my head, and that made me laugh, so that got the thing. And yes, S is Spoony Bard. That said, I'm putting the original at a solid C. Right down the center. And thank you for the biddies cry. So,
It's free real estate.
you get that's not what I wanted. Go, you minimize you. There's the window I was looking for. Okay. So,
It's free real estate.
you okay. And with that change in music, I feel like that's a fitting way to transfer into the second game.
Yeah, the difference in energy is palpable and very appropriate.
Yes. It's like, as far as aesthetics go, not a whole lot has changed. The biggest thing really is just the removal of the divider between the party and the enemy, making it feel a bit more dynamic there. But the real change comes in the atmosphere. Themes are, or as far as music goes, themes are so much darker. Note I am not good with music theory, so I cannot elaborate with shit, just, you know. There are a lot of, there are a lot,
Extremely thematically appropriate.
yes. Like, there are a lot of good, strong themes, but, like, the main theme here just kind of really puts you into the right mood. And, like, I do think 2's strength really is in its story.
Agreed.
Because, like, they took the, episodic D&D thing and made it a sprawling political drama thing. And, like, I was going through, like, a synopsis of the story and realized a lot of the plot really was just beat for beat Star Wars but fantasy. Because, like,
I mean, yeah.
and even kind of in a prophetic way, because somehow Emperor Mateus has returned.
It's still better than Rise of
Yep.
Skywalker.
But, yeah, just so much of the plot is you being on the back foot against this empire.
Yeah, and the Emperor is a bastard.
Yes! Like, entire towns wiped off the map. Like, your first interaction is getting your ass beat. But the main party, this is the first time the main party has actually had default names. Virion, Maria, Guy, and Leon. Unfortunately, that's about all their character they have. Because, like, they are very much still the malleable templates of characters that you can build however you want them. And also, aside from Maria and Leon being siblings, that's really all they have. Except, Guy does have one defining characteristic.
I speak Beaver.
Guy speak Beaver.
They're clearly the best character right there.
Yes. Leon is immediately removed from the party after that first encounter where you get your ass beat. And the last party slot is just a revolving door from there on of characters that are with you for a dungeon and then leave for whatever reason. Usually, it's because they die. A lot of characters die. Like, holy shit, there's a lot of death in 2. But, like, the fourth slot also has an issue in the gameplay section, but we will get to that. Thank you for the head pats, May.
And yeah, the guest star party members are the ones with all the character in this game.
Yes. Like, they... Legend of Dragoon isn't on the list, Cry. It's not a Final Fantasy. So, gameplay is largely the same outside of level ups, but level ups are what define FF2, for better and worse. Because every stat levels up individually. You want more HP, you gotta get punched in the face. You want more defense, get punched in the face again, I guess. I actually forget what governs defense and agility level ups. But, like, weapon proficiency is a thing. Spell proficiency is a thing. And it gets to the point where, like, your main 3, Furion, Maria, and Guy, will either be super competent and specialized in ways that just utterly trivialize the fights, or they will be under-leveled generalists that are carried by the 4th player. Because, thank you for the head pats. Because, like, that 4th person comes in always geared and leveled for what the party needs coming up. Which
Also, I will say there is a third option here, and it's the one I took, and is honestly the reason why I never finished the game, because I am a grindy motherfucker.
Yeah.
So I would sit there and I would grind for like 2 hours for every hour of plot. And like, I remember I got to the point where I got to the first boss, which I believe was the Adamantoise, and I one-shot him.
Yeah. Yeah, because it really does get to the point where the game wants you to grind, but incentivizes it in such a way that you often overgrind. And, like, once you know how things level up, it's supremely easy to game the system. Because, like, I don't know if this is the same in later versions, but I remember in the NES version, experience gain was calculated the same frame that you confirmed an action. So what you could do is you could have your, first 3 characters, issue them their orders, and then instead of issuing the 4th character their order, you back all the way up to the top and do it again. And just repeat that for, like, an hour or so, and get, like, 10 levels of whatever the fuck you want off of, like, your first major battle that you actually can win.
Yeah, they get rid of that for all of the remakes.
I kind of figured, because that seemed like a very unintentional thing.
Yeah, there is one exploit that they didn't get rid of, and that is the teleport exploit, where you can level up teleport outside of battle.
Yes.
Just by going into a town, using teleport, end up right outside of town, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, like that.
And in battle, which was also good because in battle, teleport is an instant kill
Yes.
if it lands.
Yeah.
And leveling it up increases the odds of it landing.
Yep. And like if it's not high enough level, it's just not worth using. So like I feel like that is a concession that kind of needed to happen. But like at the same time, anyway, FF2 is extremely ambitious. But like at the same time, nobody knew what the fuck they were doing with sequels at the time. Like, it's honestly kind of fascinating to go back to the NES era and look at the sequels to original games like FF2, Zelda 2, Castlevania 2. Everything fucks with the formula they established in the first one because they just don't know what they're doing yet.
The exception, of course, is Mega Man 2, which
Yes.
bucked the trend.
Yes. I feel like Mega Man 2 was the moment the game industry sat back and said, oh, we can just do the same thing but more, and that'll be enough. And like, that was good in some ways, not good in others, but is what it is. So,
I don't know what you're talking about, Cody. I love Dynasty Warriors.
I mean, I do too, but okay.
I know, I'm joking.
I know, but the fascinating thing is, Dynasty Warriors, when they try to be ambitious, they kind of suck. But, okay.
It also depends, because, like, for example, I think, like, when they have better money or people working them over, because, like, I think the Final Fantasy version, I wish there was a Final Fantasy.
Oh god, right?
But, like, the Zelda one, good. Their recent Dynasty Warriors stuff, not good.
Yeah, like the Dynasty Warriors crossovers have been so much better than the actual Dynasty Warriors games. It's kind of ridiculous. Now, where this falls on a tier list really comes down to just how you feel about the leveling system, I feel like. Because you either really jive with it, and it's really fun, or it's the most obnoxious thing ever.
And I got no thoughts on that, because, like, once I found out, oh, this is that Final Fantasy, I dropped it immediately.
Yeah. Like, for me, I'm not a fan of the leveling system. I really like the story and what it tries to do, and would kind of love, like, an actual remake to get, like, some actual quality of life stuff in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, Strangers of Paradise 2!
Final, if I could reach through the internet and strangle you, I fucking would.
I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
That is a story that will come up, I promise. However... So it's hard for me because, like, the leveling system I would say would put it on a D, but just the story I'd say is a B. I'm gonna put it on C. Again, straight down the middle. That said, it's probably going to be at the bottom of C. Okay. But now, let me swap over to FF3 music. And again...
I don't think I'm on screen.
What?
Hey,
I
next.
don't think I'm on
Oh
screen.
yeah, I don't see next.
You are behind somebody. Let me hunt you down.
I might be behind Tora.
As soon as I find your feed, where are you?
Mr. Famous, no.
I too have a cat messing around me.
I feel like my Fugi should include my cat.
Yeah. I think
There you are.
Nixie is behind me.
Yes, there you are.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, again, we have a very marked
Are we talking about the NES one or the 3DS remake? Because they feel like a bit like different games story-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's saying a lot. Well, they can't hear you on stream.
son of a bitch. Okay. It's a different Discord, but yeah. Okay, so as I was saying, but apparently didn't come through.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going back for the aesthetic breakdown again. I'm sorry. Like, y'all can see what I said here.
You can read.
Yes, like that's my take on it. Anyway, as I was saying, I would put like FF3 on par with Mega Man 2 in terms of influential NES soundtracks. Because like anyone familiar with FF14 will recognize big chunks of the 3 soundtrack. Because Soken and Yoshi P really like 3. Like, the overworld theme was retooled into Grahatia's theme. The Crystal Tower and Labyrinth of the Ancients and World of Darkness tracks are basically just orchestrated versions of how they sound in 3. FF3, except battles use the overused Wily Fortress theme. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to that, I don't think. But yeah. Just 3's soundtrack is just such a good, atmospheric, like, adventure soundtrack sort of feel to it. Plot is more scaled back from 2. but strikes a nice middle ground between 2 and 1. And I do find it funny when people talk about FF3 as Star Wars, but a guy is just mad about his inheritance. Because they're not wrong. Like, the main villain, Xande, is mad because his trainee apprentice magicians to the great mage Noah. Like, Une got the ability to walk through people's dreams. Doga got mastery over just the physical realm. And Xande got the ability to die. And he took that personally.
Yeah, but I
Don't
think
blame
his
him.
master had a great point.
Yes. Like, Noah, like, if memory serves, like, Noah was trying to frame it as, like, the only way to properly appreciate what we have is to limit your time with it.
Mhm.
And Xande did not take that lesson to heart
Absolutely not.
and just kind of flooded
Looked
the...
around.
Yes. He flooded the world with darkness, froze it in time for, like, 1,000 years or something like that. Except for one island that was floating high above the planet. And you are tasked with restoring the balance. But, like, this is also where FF's infatuation with dark is not evil comes into play, because it very much frames light and dark as two required extremes that need to be in balance rather than light being good and dark being evil.
Yeah, I always love that kind of theming.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's where it starts in 3. So, the NES version did not have, any characters for the player party. It went back to the FF1 create a character sort of thing. Though, the DS remaster does a little more with that. But once you're out of the first, I want to say, like, 2-3 hours, something like that, the party characters just kind of disappear into the background. But it really is the NPCs doing the heavy lifting. Because, like with 2, you usually have a guest character along with you. They don't really do anything, but the episodic stories kind of focus more around them and their quests and whatnot. In the 3DS or in the DS remake, they will, like, show up and do, like, a couple things in battle, but, like, that's at the start of the battle or, like, halfway through, something like that. Anyway, but yeah, Doga, Une, and Xande are, like, the pillars of the world building here. And the way, like, Doga and Une bring the party in to the main quest against Xande makes it weirdly personal in how you're kind of almost disconnected from everything else. It's hard to put into words, but I really liked it. I'll say that. Combat is relatively unchanged from the previous 2. Leveling is back to normal, and the job system is introduced. And for a first outing, it's not bad. It's not bad. Like, you get more jobs as you progress through the series or the game, but there are times when the freedom of expression is, bottlenecked, because, like, there's a dungeon where if you don't deliver the final or the killing blow to an enemy with a Dark Knight katana, the enemy revives and spawns another version of themselves.
That's bullshit.
It is. It is. But thankfully, it's just that one dungeon. Or there's the boss that requires you to have the whole party as dragoons so you can jump and avoid certain attacks. Or there's the Amon boss fight, where Amon is constantly changing his elemental weakness, so you have to have at least one person as a sage to spot what his new elemental weakness is. Like, it's playing with the mechanics of the battles in a way that hadn't been done before, and it kinda stumbles. That said, at the very end is where 3 stumbles the hardest. Because, like, this was back when, all game publishers were very much anti-rental and everything. So the final 3 dungeons of the game are basically back-to-back marathons that you have to do in one sitting. Theoretically, you can save after the Labyrinth of the Ancients. However, if you do, you will have about a 30-minute march back through the dungeon if you need to buy anything. If you need to stock up on healing, potions, whatever, and that's a slog. But the Crystal Tower and World of Darkness are literally back to back. And the difficulty there also kind of forces you to do a very specific build where you have 2 I forget what the final spellcaster class is called. I think it's Sage. But I might be also thinking of the Amon fight having a different job that's required because I don't think Sage has the scan ability. Because Sage's big thing is that they can just use any magic. Any magic. But you have to have 2 sages, 1 for offensive casting, 1 for healing, and then 2 ninjas. And that's just to keep up with the damage race that is the final boss. So, it's trying to do something unique there, but kind of stumbles on the execution.
Also, the original... Well, actually, the original and the remake, they brought back the spell charges.
Yes. That said, they're not as, restrictive as the first game. Because, I remember, getting to, the end game, and I had so many spell charges that I was just throwing spells out willy-nilly without really caring about it, only saving, the high-end stuff, sort of thing. But yeah, 3 is where I feel like Final Fantasy truly starts. That's where all the themes and designs and everything is really, for lack of a better term, pun intended, really crystallizes. But it stumbles in places, but it really nails. Yep. There's the bonk. That was kind of delayed, but yeah. But it kind of stumbles in a few places, but ultimately, this is where everything is coming together. So, on the list, I can't put it at C. I would honestly put 3 up into A. Not quite S, but it's one of those games that I have routinely come back to through the DS version at the very least. That said, if you pick up the DS version that's on Steam, which it is on Steam, be aware there are some weird technical issues that prevent it from launching out of the box. There are support threads on Steam to fix that, but
You mean the Pixel Remaster or
No.
another version?
No,
He's
the-
saying that yes.
the Pixel remaster is basically the NES version, but the 3D remake that was on the DS is also on Steam.
I see.
And the DS version is what has a weird, like, missing DLL file or something like
Also,
that.
This just reminded me to put 3 on my wish list.
Yes. Okay. Now, I was actually really well timed with the end of that song loop. Anyway, on to 4.
Yay.
Now this one's my baby.
So,
Yup. So, right out the gate, we have a massive jump in quality as far as, like, aesthetics go. Because, like, you could really tell by the time we get to FF3 that they were really struggling or pushing the NES to its limit. And the jump to the SNES trivialized that, restriction, and you can really see a lot of fascinating growth. Like, just the jump from 3 to 4 is just so massive. And or is an A or S 100%. We'll get there, Cry. Don't worry. And likewise, the music took a massive leap forward. Like, gone are just these single channel songs, and now we've got, like, actual arrangements and instrumentation and shit.
Yep.
And, like, the storage space increased massively, so everything has its own little, theme. Like, there's themes for sad scenes and happy scenes and just Kane being a little shithead. But, like, it really just felt like Uematsu was finally getting to flex, especially his, like, prog rock influences in the battle themes, with the final battle theme being a standout there. And, oh baby, the plot. We could spend a good hour just breaking down the plot in and of itself.
Or you could do like I do and say that 75% of the plot could have been solved if only Cecil and Kane and Rosa had sat on Kane's face.
I mean,
For
yes.
the beginning of the game.
Yes. But that, like, there's also just a lot of going on. A lot
Yes.
going on. Like, this is the first game where you have, like, themes of, like, questioning authority and shit come up. That said, I've always kind of felt like the whole struggle with Cecil being a Dark Knight wasn't really well defined. Because,
Yeah,
like,
honestly,
It's not.
like, the only thing that really denoted him as, like, someone with, like, dark intentions or whatever is his, like, special ability that uses his HP to do a screen wipe, which ironically was taken out of the American edition because people thought, or Square of America thought that was too hard for people to understand. But yeah, it's just like, it was a weird distinction, I feel like. I get what they were going for. I just would have liked to have seen it a bit better.
yeah, because like with Cecil, the only reason he even takes that dark power is because it was suggested by the king.
Yeah.
He trusts, but yeah, it doesn't really do much with it. It's like, how does this really affect him beyond? Okay, I have to take orders from the king, but already already doing that. Like, I love Cecil, but it is one of the biggest plot things that's just kind of there.
Yeah. Also hygiene.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest,
because
also,
I'm popping in because we're on break, so I'm just going to be very brief. We're making dinner right now, so we have a lull in our own stream, and I'm popping in brief because we are talking about FF4, and we're specifically talking about Thessel's transition between classes, and I wanted to add a little bit of cultural context that in the years since the game has come out in Japan and partially abroad, not as much abroad, but partially abroad, Cecil's whole story has been re-examined as a trans allegory by Japanese fans of the series. And you all can do with that information what you will, whether you think it's a particularly good one or not, but there's definitely something that FF4 in particular holds a place for the Japanese fan, particularly among queer Final Fantasy fans. And I will leave you to the rest of your conversation.
Good for them. Good for them.
Honestly-
that bitch is queer.
Yep. Honestly, I can see that. Like,
Yeah, I am not even remotely surprised. by that
Yeah.
information.
yeah, unfortunately, I lost.
like especially with the framing of like the paladin being Cecil's quote unquote true self. You know, I can absolutely see that. Yeah. Huh.
So
Now
does
I
that
remember
mean
what I
that the
was trying to
Holy
say about
Dragoon in After Years is Kane's transition?
Yes.
Good.
I'm not so sure, because the whole thing with that was meant to
Yeah.
be redemption.
Yeah. Like I may mostly joking there, but yeah, I could see it being taken either way. Honestly, as far as like
Making
Kane
a trans
goes.
for trans joke. That's
Yeah.
Don't think too hard about
Yeah.
it.
Also, one thing I did want to say about the Dark Knight class, honestly, it sucks. If I'm being honest,
Yeah.
like early on, like okay, I can wipe out a bunch of enemies at the cost of my health. Okay, that's neat, but that's about the only thing you can do, and but again, you can't make it.
Like, thankfully the change between or from Dark Knight to Paladin comes early enough in the game that by the time Dark Wave starts to fall off in utility, you're about to change over into Paladin anyway.
Yeah. Plus, like I know we haven't
You have a
gotten
black
to it
niche
yet, but I do appreciate how they made those forms distinct.
Yes. Characters. First game to have like fully fleshed out characters for the party as well. Like the main character has come down to, Cecil, Kane, Rosa, Rydian, Edge. But all the rest of the cast is fairly well fleshed out. That said, there's a lot of the revolving door stuff that 2 struggled with, but the party doesn't change as drastically, and like instead of like every dungeon having a new party member coming in, it's more like a cast of 10 that is like swapping out little by little and coming back in and coming back out and everything like that.
Yeah, it's 10 people having trouble.
Yeah.
So whoever's doing the dungeon is whoever's available this weekend.
Effectively, yeah. It does kind of have like a bigger D&D feel to it, like, oh, Sid can't come to this session, he's working overtime, so Edward's gonna fill in, sort of thing. Let's see. Very simple concept of being able to change out party members at will didn't happen until 6. Correct. But also, using the D&D allegory, I like to think the same character or the same player that rolled up Tella died and then made Edge.
Sure.
Like that's my headcanon in the D&D, session meta.
D&D alternate universe verse.
Yeah, effectively. But yeah, supporting characters also feel like more than just quest givers. Each town has its own like looks and feels. There's multiple cultures, and the Archfiends. make things so personal compared to their previous iterations. Like, there's a reason, like, Rubicante especially is fondly remembered, even to this day.
Freaking love him, and especially in the remake when you hear Edge's voice actor give his performance. It is awesome.
Yeah.
It's like Rubicante also had this like despite like the
I'll be right
like,
back.
He's involved with the Empire and stuff. He does have like a sense of honor too that makes him stand out.
Yeah. So, 1 second.
Yeah, people love the honorable villain trope.
Yes. So, need to turn the music down a little bit more. There we go. Getting a little loud. Anyway. So, gameplay. I have got an echo on Chris's thing, so. Also, as composer arranger Hayden discovered, each of the 4 theme names meters out onto the first 4 notes of the theme's chorus. Correct! So, you know, gameplay is a big departure in that this is where the active time battle is introduced. And it was kind of rough, if I'm being honest. In that, like, the simple fact that you couldn't see where your characters were, at least in terms of getting their turns, made things kind of nerve-wracking at times.
Yeah, like with the final boss, like I remember with Rosa, I had to heal ahead of time just to be safe. Because
Yeah.
The boss would fight me.
Yeah. And, like, I remember, like, especially early on when, you know, the wait times were longer, there would be, like, a boss would be doing, like, different, it was the Octomammon, specifically, I remember. And, like, I would tell Tella to cast a spell, and then I was just sitting there with my controller while the Kraken, or whatever you want to call it, starts doing, like, form transitions. I'm like, okay, is this a scripted part of the battle, or am I meant to be doing something and I just don't have my turn yet, or what? And it legitimately kind of made me anxious. And not in a way I think was fully intentional. This is Hirohiko Ito's legacy. I see. The ATB alone kept him employed at SC for 15 years. Damn. Okay, then. But yeah. Let's see. Wait mode was a godsend for me, especially because once you get into a menu, like you're into your items or spell list, that's when you can kind of take a breath, chill, figure out what you want to do. But there is something to be said about the frenzied nature of trying to menu as fast as possible. But I always preferred the more strategic feel of the turns. So, let's see. Customization is stripped back in favor of scripted battles. So, like, because the game has complete control over what your party is, and it has a much better idea of what tools you're bringing to every fight. So, the fights feel consistently fair, as long as you're, like, engaging with each character's abilities and whatnot. So, like, 4 does have a reputation for being among the harder versions, but that's, I think, because, like, each major boss fight, rather, is pretty much tailored to what the player has, and it plays very much into pushing you to really engage with those systems. Once you get to that, you're pretty good. Pretty good. So, if 3 is where Final Fantasy starts to crystallize, 4 is where everything starts to really... I don't know where I'm going with the sentence.
The crystal gets its shine, maybe?
Three walked so 4 could run, effectively, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and just, there are so... Yeah, 4 polishes, basically, yeah. And, like, there are so many versions of 4 now that you can pretty much experience it however you want. Like, the SNES version of 4 was very simple. So, like, if you just want the story, that's a good place to start. Pixel Remaster store the original difficulty. The 3D remake makes it a lot more punishing because you can like take you can actually like customize the characters in the 3D remake. And I really like that. And they push the difficulty to the extreme there. And like the 3D remake is my favorite version of 4, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Same.
Yeah, you enjoy suffering.
I do. Like,
Also, I just like love the voice acting and how
yes,
are interpreted in 3D now.
and like there's a bunch more like supplemental bits of lore that are added into the 3D remake. Like the 3D remake explains how Cecil came to Baron, and like establishes Golbez as a part of Cecil's life before the mind control happens, and like really drives home why Cecil would trust the King of Baron with life-altering decisions like the Dark Knight thing, and why it would take so much for Cecil to break free of that, because the king kind of raised him.
Yep.
But yeah, there is just no wrong way to play 4.
Also, I will say, like, I'd say the PSP version is probably one of the best if you want to experience the old versions of 4.
Yes.
Because it includes the content from the EVA, and the sprite work is beautiful. Plus,
Yes.
It's bundled, like, I'm not sure if this is a plus or minus anymore. It's bundled with the After Years.
Yes.
The interlude or whatever that's supposed to come before.
Yeah. After Years is such a weird thing, because like it was originally made for like cell phones,
Wow.
and like I'm talking like flip phones. It was made on Java, and you had to use your like dial in your numbers for your inputs and shit. It was weird.
I
That I
remember
didn't know. I thought it
texting
was
on the dial pad.
Yup.
All this time, I thought it started on the Wii as like an eShop title.
No, it was on phones first.
That explains all the reused assets.
Yes. Like,
Yes.
also kind of explains the episodic nature of it, because like the file sizes just couldn't be too big.
Oh right, that I almost forgot about that.
So, also, I don't know if I can zoom in on this, but like just I want to highlight, this is not where it's landing, I just want to highlight the Famicom box art, because none of those characters are characters in the game. But that's the Famicom box
Lovely.
art.
You know,
Anyway.
the funny thing is, I think I also saw that on like when I was trying to look up like not wallpapers, desk mats or something for my laptop. I was looking for stuff for Final Fantasy IV. That freaking image showed up, and I'm just like, no, that's wrong. I'm not. spending
None of
$100
these
on
people
that.
are in the game.
Exactly. Like,
Except maybe the Chocobo, but yeah, you know. You
I mean, the
gotta go
Chocobo's
to
not really
that.
a character.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, look, I picked Spoony Bard for a reason.
Thank you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Like, 4 is just too charming to put any lower.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say it was like probably, I honestly forget now, but it was either my first or second Final Fantasy between that and 10.
It was my first, but it was not my favorite. That will be coming later. Anyway,
4 is the first one I own personally, not like my parents bought this for me and my siblings.
yes. Anyway, on to 5.
Are you gonna talk about the Fiesta?
Eventually, yes.
Yes, that.
Yeah, the 4-job Fiesta. But FF4 DS fun fact: this was the last game that Ito worked on as a full-time employee. Interesting. Working on the DS so much that he took a job at Cattle Call to develop the Dragon Quest 4 DS version. Nice.
The DS Dragon Quest games are really good.
Yeah. So
I love
the aesthetics for 5 far more iterative, reflecting like more like the growth from 1 to 2. But it also has like a lot more expressiveness in the environment. Like, I picked the battle screen of the page 64, I think is the enemy's name,
Yes.
because that is such a fun framing of like the enemy coming up out of the book page that they couldn't have done on the NES. And like, that's more of like smart usage of their limited resources. Because yeah, as G mentions, famously lean budget. And you can almost kind of hear it in a way. It's like, we'll get to it in the music, but like, this feels more in line with the NES sounds than like the full fleshed out sounds of 4. That's not a bad thing necessarily, but anyway, yeah. You know what? Let's just jump straight into the music. Quantity is definitely there as well, but the approach is more atmospheric in nature than like specific themes. And there are a lot more that kind of fall into the situational background thing. Which is not a bad thing, just you don't hear like people humming the overworld theme like to themselves effectively. Like, that said, I don't think I would survive if I didn't mention Clash on the Big Bridge. Like,
Yeah, people would come up and beat you up.
yeah, like, that one song kind of overshadows the rest of the soundtrack in such a massive way that it's kind of fascinating. Plot is very much scaled back to, you know, something more akin to like 1, actually. Very much go here, do this. It takes the tone of almost like a Saturday morning cartoon sort of thing, where like the main villain is a tree, for Christ's sakes, and he has a DBZ battle with a turtle.
But what a tree he is.
Yeah. Everyone is like very much one note as far as like characters go. Again, this is not a bad thing, just like I liken X-Death's presence to the 80s TMNT Shredder. And honestly, like, the main party feels kind of like the same in that they feel less like fully fleshed out characters, more like the one note, Donnie does machines sort of thing. They have one personality trait and then they just milk that for fun. And
Also, it's funny you said that about X-Death when you said he also plays the turtle.
Yes. Honestly, I was thinking about the turtle when I wrote that. Not gonna lie. That said, once again, Clash on the Big Bridge comes up, and Gilgamesh had so much presence, almost unintentionally, that he just finds his way into so many other games. And he is the only character to transcend multiple games like that aren't direct sequels.
Gilgamesh basically comes in past the halfway point and steals the entire game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, Gilgamesh is kind of like Deadpool in his weird, unintentional popularity, in a way.
That makes so much sense.
Oh, Gilgamesh also lives mostly in his own universe.
Yes.
Yeah, like
We're just
a lot of-
visitors here.
yeah, plus like it's stuff like way more comedic. Like my first exposure to him was FF12, and I saw his design and like him having like a wolf companion. I'm thinking like, oh man, this dude's got to be a total badass. And I see his cutscenes, and I'm just like, this guy is hilarious.
Yup. And like okay, so one of the characters in your party, Ferris, the pirate captain, is a cross-dressing lady. That's a plot point that gets brought up within like the first hour of the game, and that's also a plot point that runs its course within that first 2 hours, and from there it's just kind of a thing. And Gilgamesh opens one of his battles with, "It is time for us to fight like men and women who dress like men."
Gilgamesh gets it.
Yeah, it's just like,
Gilgamesh, it is morning time.
yes.
Gilgamesh says trans rights.
Yup. And like just his every quote is something so off the wall that it just sticks in your brain. And so they just keep bringing him back.
Yep.
Which ultimately culminates with him getting stranded in FF14 and getting so lonely for his best friend Enkidu that he paints a chicken green.
Yeah.
Gilgamesh for Smash.
Yup.
He would win. He would just win. He shows up, he steals the game.
Steals all Master Hand's toys.
Yup.
You could even paint his appearance in Smash as canon.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's see. ATB is largely unchanged from 4, but as the visibly charging bars, which took so much of the guesswork out of the game, and honestly made it a much easier experience to get into.
Yeah.
The job system from 3 is reintroduced, revamped, and is one of the most amazingly built systems in the series. Like, this is where the 4-job fiesta comes up, because the game is so flexible that you can randomly pick 4 jobs, limit yourself to only touching those 4 jobs, and still beat the game, no matter what. Because the game is
pretty hard if you do the runes, apparently.
yeah, there are challenge modes where, like Berserker gets thrown in there and you just lose control of a single character.
Okay.
But it is doable with any combination of 4 jobs. And when
yeah, the combination. I'm talking about 4 dragoons.
oh god. So like the way 4-job fiesta is structured is at each of the 4 crystals you get another job. So at the first crystal, everyone is the same job, effectively.
Yeah.
At the second job, or Crystal, you can start making combinations, etc. You can just do one job all the way through if you want. It is honestly kind of a masterclass in balancing that. It allows you to do that with no job being overwhelmingly more powerful than the others. And also there's like just a shit ton of jobs as well.
Yep.
Like, let me do a quick Google. How many jobs are in FF5? There are 22 jobs in the NES version, 26 in the Game Boy Advance and later.
Wow. That's a lot.
And they're all unique. Like, they all have their own unique mechanics and roles and shit. And it's just such an infinitely replayable game. Like, if ever there was an RPG that felt like an arcade game, it would be this. So, like, not as grand as, like, FF4 or anything, but it is just a good, fun time. And one of those things where you can never go wrong going back to it. So, on the tier list itself, it is...
Gilgamesh should get a tier for himself.
I mean, if I were rating characters, yes, Gilgamesh would have a tier all to himself. Like, I will say, I like the grand sweeping, world building stuff, but I also really like 5. I'm gonna put it at...
You can do a tier list with Gilgamesh himself in every game.
Yeah, I'm gonna put 5 at the top of A rank.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And now we come to 6. Put that on loop.
Yes.
So, I'm not gonna lie. 6 is my favorite game of all time. And I cannot be impartial here. Like, I have nothing but praise for this game, and I am just going to continue to gush for a while.
Your stream.
Yep.
So,
Nobody
like-
can boot you.
Yes. So, the aesthetics are... Chris, I'm getting an echo through your microphone again. But the aesthetics are once again, a generational leap. Just primarily because, like, they finally unified... Thank you for the bonk, Tora. They finally unify, like, the exploration sprites and the in-battle sprites. And because they're effectively taking the sprite work for characters and cutting the necessary amount of sprites in half, what they can do with the sprites is just make them so much more expressive. Like, if you look at the sprite sheets for the characters, it's honestly kind of amazing just how many situational poses each character has. And a lot of them I don't think are actually, like, used in the story, but they are, like, used in battle. Like, just the use of the assets in the sprites is just so stupidly well done that it feels so much better to like they don't have to tell you, characters are feeling this or this. They can just show it a lot easier.
Yeah, I was surprised, like, to see how they were even able to carry out conversation with those expressions in the middle of fights, where
Yes.
they would stop and basically play a cutscene, but still using the battle sprites.
Yeah, and those cutscenes were completely dependent on the player character. Because, like, I remember the first time I was playing, you get a
Beautiful.
you get a battle with, like Terra, Edgar, and Locke. And as they're, fleeing from some Imperial guys. And you can have Terra use magic, and the entire battle just stops for a good, like, minute or two. As, like, Locke and Edgar just contemplate the world-shattering implications of somebody that can use magic.
Yeah. You still have to finish to play that game for me.
Yes, I do. But, like...
I also have the image of just, like, Edgar and just, like, you said Locke, right?
Yes.
Just, like, not only stopping in the middle of a fight, but just stopping the enemies. Hold up, we need to talk about this. You just stay over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is groundbreaking stuff right here.
And the thing, like, if you don't have Terra use magic in that battle and keep going, they can have that same cutscene happen, like, at the end of the next dungeon, even. Just whenever the first time, Terra uses magic, they have that cutscene. And it makes for such a unique experience. And just the backgrounds are so much more lush and detailed, and the lighting and everything. I just love how this game looks. And the music is some of Uematsu's best work on this system, like, hands down. And Dancing Mad being Dancing Mad is a technological feat that is just fucking impressive in general. Just, there had never been a boss fight with movements before Dancing Mad. And the fact that, like, Uematsu got around, like, memory limitations to get that done is such an impressive thing. And just, you can hear the overworld theme playing. I fucking adore this song in general. And also, yes, Dancing Mad is the single best final boss theme in all of gaming. I will die on that hill.
Let's fight.
Plot is, once again, massive, to the point that it actually has, like, a Star Wars-esque opening crawl to set the mood. And yes, Kefka is a villain that cannot be replicated either before or since. Indeed. Many have tried, none have succeeded. But the grand scope of everything also, like, just kind of falls away in the face of, like, making the individual characters the star of the show. Like, yes, you have the Empire and their machinations and everything, but the story is just about these characters and their relationships, and I love them all. Like, I'm just gonna press on to the characters because I want to play or talk about the characters. There are 14 characters, 14 playable characters. And with the exception of 3, they all have their time to shine in this story. Like, FF6 was designed with the idea of any one of these 14 characters could be the main character. Whereas before, like, Cecil was the main character of 4. Bartz was the main character of 5. Furion was the main character of 2. 1 and 3 are, their own thing. But to this day, even, like, there are people who will argue who the actual main character of 6 is. I wouldn't say that they really got the whole anyone could be the main character thing done just by virtue of when characters are introduced and whatnot. Like, Edgar, Locke, and Terra are all introduced fairly early on. Sabin joins later. But then you got characters like Realm and Strago who are pushing the boundary up to, like, the halfway point in when they join. And because of that, they don't get as much spotlight. But the fact that, like, Terra and Celeste are the two that get argued about as being the main character will never not be impressive to me. Now, I will say, I think this game is a perfect...
Both of those characters are women.
Yes. Like,
Yep.
the fact that the main characters, the only ones in the contention, are women is a first for the series, and they're also some of the best characters in the series, I would say.
Yeah, like, we were talking about how, like, earlier with FF4, we didn't really feel Cecil's, like, dark side really, that issue not really being much of a thing besides what he did for the king. But with Terra, it feels a bit more concrete just because she can't control it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, it's also, like, set up right at the beginning, where, like, you have that interaction with Tritalk within the first half hour of the game, and it plants the seeds of, hey, there's something different going on with her. What's the deal? And then you have the revelation of, oh, she can use magic naturally. That's a world-shattering revelation for characters. And makes Terra, the focal point of the power struggle. And then she fully unlocks that power and kind of goes berserk. And that has a lot more, like, grounding in her character to the point where you really believe she is afraid of herself. But I will say, like, as much as I love this series, or this game, I can't, in good faith, not address the criticisms to be had with the second half of the game. To the point where I've given it its own section. I love the world of Ruin. Don't get me wrong. But it is the first open world RPG ever, I feel like. To the point where once you get off of the island, recruit Sabin and Setzer, you're told you can just go to the end of the game. You can beat the game right then with just those 3 characters. But the game very much expects you to find the rest of the party. And you know what? While I'm talking about this, I'm actually going to swap music. Because it is a very stark tone contrast. World of Ruin.
Same wind sound as Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, though we don't get to hear this, version of the overworld theme very long because it was overridden by the Falcon's theme.
Yup. And, like, it starts very strong in that, isolating, you have gone from, this 14 character party down to 1. And you have to, like, fight and struggle and just just to find each other. But let me actually go to the Falcon theme real quick. Like, to the point where the primary World of Ruin theme is literally called Searching for Friends. Like, it is very much, you are meant to go out, do your side quests, and find your allies. And because of the non-linear format, the game cannot take into consideration who is in your party at any given time. So, a lot of the dialogue will have, like, the character you are working on recruiting back into the party speaking, and then an untitled dialogue box that is generic enough that anyone could have said it effectively. So, like,
that was one of the main issues I had with FF6. Like, I thought the first half was really good. The second half, while it still has its good spots, kind of kept losing me because of that aspect.
Yeah. Like, to the point where I would like to see a remaster or something that would take advantage of the, the storage capacity of, modern hardware and everything, and actually add that personalization back in. Like, actually take into consideration who you're controlling at any given time in a cutscene. But at the same time, just the fact that it is kind of... Okay, another thing I should probably point out is because of the non-linearity, the difficulty curve kind of flattens out in World of Ruin. And once you get over that curve, the difficulty falls off hard. And you start getting, like, some of the most overpowered stuff. Like, it is very, very easy to get to a point where you are casting 4 Ultima spells per turn for 4 MP. Or, hitting every enemy on the in the fight 8 times each every turn. Like, it gets kind of ridiculous. But at the same time, I do feel like it's one of the most impressive and ambitious points in a game. But I love the World of Ruin, but I absolutely acknowledge it's not for everyone. It comes down to personal preference there.
On the positive side, I do feel like it's inspired games like Dragon Quest XI to do their own take on it.
Yes.
And I do appreciate FF6 like doing that.
Yes. So game.
Here,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I also do like the finale where if you're able to like recruit those members, you can actually see what they're doing in the final dungeon too.
Yes.
I thought that was a cool touch.
Yes.
Yeah.
As far as gameplay, ATB returns. Job system has been swapped out for something attempting to strike a balance between 4 and 5 as far as customization goes. Because I forgot to loop the song. 1 second. Loop. There we go. Anyway, so each character has their own unique ability. Like Edgar has his tools, Locke has stealing, Sabin has his blitzes, etc. So early on, especially, every character feels very unique. Once Espers and Magicite are introduced, allowing all characters to learn magic, you have that more customizable party build-up. Unfortunately, the Magicite also kind of lends to homogenization across the characters, because Ultima is always going to do more damage than whatever Blitz Sabin can do, or whatever tool Edgar has. Like, there are challenge runs where you can just do, quote, natural magic, where only Terra and Celeste can learn magic, or use magic, and only the stuff they can learn without the Magicite. That said, that also, like, severely nerfs your stat gains, as the Magicite also makes you stronger on level up. But it's one of those things where it's easy to break, but also, like, if you want that challenge, it's there, and it's doable. And so the difficulty becomes very much, like, what you make of it. If you play the intended way, you are going to be very overpowered by the end of the game. But just electing to not use certain systems makes it a lot more challenging. So, basically just play however you want, and it'll be a fun time.
And I think when you described it like that, an important thing like that FF6 is able to do is give that player expression. Like,
Yes.
If they just want to, like, I want my characters to feel unique, I want my characters to be overpowered, or I want my characters to, like, function opposite of how they would usually. Like, take the bad magic characters, suddenly make them good magic characters, or, make the magic specialties all of a sudden like physical tanks or something like that. Try to go that extra mile.
Like, I have, like, a very rigid, set of spells that I tend to give characters. Like, Sabin is my buffer. Terra specializes in fire magic for me. Edgar is where all my statuses come from. Stuff like that. But, like, that's also just what I chose to do. You can do whatever you want with your characters. And the flexibility is really impressive. So, overview, yeah, I cannot be objective with this game. I do not blame anybody for not vibing with it, but it is ultimately my favorite game of all time. 4 was what pushed me to see that games could be more than just, arcade experiences. 6 is what really made me a gamer, for lack of a better term. So, like, I'm not gonna draw it out. Where's 6? Just, it will always be at the top of S for me.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Why is there a blank slide there? Anyway, YouTube, there you are. Okay, so, oop. So, we have our next big generational leap, and in the aesthetics, it is both a step forward and step backward in some ways.
Yeah.
Because, like, once again, we have separate sprites for, battle and exploration. But the addition of the pre-rendered backgrounds for the exploration is kind of the biggest deal here. Taking, like, the more abstract backgrounds for the previous games and actually packing in all the little details to make a world fresh. And yes, I fully agree, Cry. Nostalgia Goggles has overhyped FF7 to the moon. Like, 7 is a great game, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, hype can be anything's worst enemy.
Yeah.
Because you're expecting, like, godly status for a game that it just likely cannot achieve and meet your expectations. Because that's what happened to me when I played FF7.
Yeah, like, I remember seeing the commercials for 7 as it was, being released and everything, and all of the footage was from, like, the FMV cutscenes.
Yeah.
Like, this version of Cloud never showed up in there. It was all either the battles or the FMVs.
The commercials make me think the game was a fighting game, like
Yeah.
Street Fighter or something.
You mean guys?
Totally gave a different vibe of what the game actually was.
Yeah. Like,
Like, I was not interested in the game. My parents got the game anyway. By chance, they didn't know what to get me for my first PlayStation. They chose that, and I was like, but I don't like this one. Oh, well, I will play it fine, and then but
yeah.
it blew me away because it was also my first RPG.
Yep. And like, I don't want to discount that because like 7 is so many people's first RPG, and I get it. It's also like legitimately a great game, one of the best. However, so like, yeah, the 3D modeling is very rudimentary.
And the ruins, everything.
Yes. But like the 3D modeling is very rudimentary, but has its own little blocky charm to it. Like, there's just something about the battle screens in particular that just take me back to the time period in the 90s.
Also, like, the
Oh.
overworld sprites end up getting reused for a minigame in
Yes.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that, like, the vast majority of the muscle of the PlayStation was going to those FMVs that still honestly look pretty impressive. Like, especially when you put it side by side with the other forms, the FMVs are legitimately good. When it comes to models, I want to point out that Legend of Dragoon released just 2 years later. Yes.
Yeah, that blew me away.
Yeah.
And it had voice acting in
It-
some parts.
It did. Unfortunately, it did. Like,
I didn't get voice acting until PlayStation 2.
like, I love Legend of Dragoon and its voice acting. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's good. Like, it is very much the same kind of, like, Resident Evil 1 par of voice acting.
The only game from that era where I can tolerate the voice acting is Star Fox 64.
Yes. And honestly, I think that's kind of an intentional thing where they are trying very hard to be, like, the Saturday morning cartoon feel to it.
Also, like, the actual voice acting once you get around the N64's compression issues is really legitimately good.
Oh yeah.
The lines are still as cheesy as they've ever been, but the actors did a good job.
Yep. Now to get onto the music, where we come to my first spicy take. But we'll get to that. But like, overall, soundtrack is much more an industrial as far as like composition go, less emphasis on specific genres, more of a mood approach. Songs, a lot of the songs aren't as recognizable outside of their intended contexts, but are extremely evocative for those contexts, and the ones that are stand out long or far beyond their actual context. And then there's One Winged Angel. I'm sorry, but y'all, I gotta be honest. One Winged Angel blows.
And this is where we lose at least 70% of the viewership.
Like,
I gotta say, like, Overplay really turned me against it too, so.
like, even just on its own merits, like, it's fine, but it's very repetitive. It's it feels like it was written within like maybe half an hour. And like just okay, we've got like a good 20 seconds of song. Let's just repeat that for a while. But like I will say like Advent Children does build on it.
Yeah,
But
I
even
want
the
to
Advent
know,
Children's
like,
version sucks.
I feel that
Yeah,
a
I'm
lot
more
of
familiar with the Advent Children version because I never actually got to the final boss.
Yeah, just
I wanted to
You'll
say
notice
that
that's a pattern with me with Final Fantasy.
yeah.
I can get up to the final dungeon, then I start grinding, and then I get distracted, and I never come back to it.
Oh boy, I feel that.
Happened to me in 2. It happened to me once in 6, but I went back and I came back to the game and beat it. Then it also happened to me in 7.
Yep. And what were you saying, Tora?
yeah, I wanted to say that I feel that the repetitiveness of One Winged Angel is both intentional in part because a lot of the songs like is hymns and such, which is what the song was trying to be, and hymn for Sephiroth are repetitive, and also because of limitations of the software. Because
Yeah.
what later on in Advent Children and in the remake and everything, they built on that, and it wasn't as repetitive.
Yeah. And like I will fully admit, that is a limitation thing. There's also
It's not a good track.
yeah, there's also that part of me that loves Dancing Mad as a final boss theme. But whenever people talk about the best final boss themes, it's always One Winged Angel. One Winged Angel. Nobody talks about Dancing Mad. It's always One Winged Angel. So I also admit there's a bias I have there. But yeah. Moving along. Plot swaps out the high fantasy for something closer to like steampunk or cyberpunk. Corporations are the big bad here. And like I will say it was a refreshing change to have like the Shades of Grey with Avalanche and how it portrayed doing the right thing, but is the ends justifying the means sort of thing.
Mhm.
And like ultimately that does kind of take a back seat for the more interpersonal dramas as the game progresses. It's just, fine. But yeah. Also, that's going to tie into a lot of what I have to say about the remake, but, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, I will say regarding the setting and the technology level, I would say it's closer to diesel punk than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. But, like, also that's the first time I've heard the term diesel punk, and I kind of love it.
Yeah, like, the basis for it is kind of, like, imagine steampunk, but the technology is all taken from the interwar period of the 20th century.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Also, like, a point that I will never stop harping about is that, like, Sakaguchi pinned the broad, like, outline of the plot partially as a method of, like, helping him process the grief of losing his mother. Which is, like, spoilers for a 20-year-old game at this point, but that's why Aerith dies.
I don't think that necessitates a spoiler warning at this point. It's so
I mean-
thoroughly ingrained in pop culture.
You have not seen this crazy fandom.
I mean, there's also legitimate questioning on where the remake is going with that, so it might technically still be a spoiler. Again, though, we will get to that when we get to that. All I'm going to say is there's a reason I'm covering the first remake game and none of the rest. Characters are very diverse here. Like, honestly, the fact that Cloud is one of, like, 3, I guess, white men in the party is kind of astounding in itself. Because, like, I guess it kind of depends on how you classify Kate Sheath. Are you counting the actual party member or the person controlling it? That said, like, still, like, you have a black man, lots of girls of varying cultures, and it's just like, it feels so much more like a well-rounded representation of this world. But let's see. My train of thought got derailed. Let's see. Where was I?
About Kite Seed, I will say it's definitely its own character.
Yeah.
Like games afterwards do show that Kite Seed does have, while even so it's controlled, it has its own personality. In fact, the game itself, during the Black Materia quest in the Ancient Temple and Kite Seed's sacrifice itself, it says that even though there are more models, they are not exactly the same. There are differences.
Interesting. I had actually forgotten about that.
And in fact, the second Kite Seed you get, there are times where it felt a bit colder regarding its interactions with the party compared to the first Kite Seed.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because the first Kite Seed had been with you for a lot longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty much like Rei Ayanami in Evangelion.
Yeah. So yeah, like the one thing that like really does like tie them all together though is that shared through line of trauma and grief in some way. And like having that binding them together makes them feel more like a found family than ever before. I will say that.
Yeah.
Like
It also
agree.
helps like the people giving them the trauma are mostly affiliated with Shinra.
yeah. But oh, don't apologize, Tora. You're fine. That's why I had you here is to blabber.
Okay.
Also, don't get me started on how they pronounce his name. It's
Yeah.
wrong. It's supposed to be Coxton. because it's Scottish.
I butchered his name, but you have to understand. I'm Spanish.
Yeah.
I'm Spanish.
Oh yeah, no. I mean in general, not. I wasn't.
The name
I didn't-
is written however it wants.
Yeah.
Like I mean in general, and like how Square Enix is doing in the remake, where they just use English phonetics, and it drives me up a wall.
Mhm.
And, like, that said, like, I will say that the one character that drives me up a wall as far as, like, how people interpret him really is Sephiroth. Because
100% agreed.
Sephiroth in the game is not an active character. He is dead for 90% of the game. He is supposed to be a ghost haunting everyone. He has these scars of trauma that do not go away. Like, so much of what makes Sephiroth an effective antagonist is in the symbolism that he is wrapped up with, not his actual presence, if that makes any sense. Because, like,
Yeah, like I will say the one thing about Sephiroth I find most compelling is the very, very personal nature of his grudge with Cloud.
yes. So, gameplay. Again, ATB is back with some refinements. Materia is what I really feel like the Espers and Magicite in 6 were trying to do, and Materia is the fully realized version of that because it interacts with so much other things, like your equipment, your how they grow, and like you can transfer skills between characters and make your own like character archetypes if you want, and it really allows for the most granular character building yet, and it feels really fucking good. The limit breaks are also a defining thing in that it actually gives characters like a unique, consistent role outside of the player's input. So, like, no matter how hard you try, Cloud is always going to be dealing damage with his limit breaks, etc. Unfortunately, I do feel like some of the limit breaks, all they boil down to is dealing more damage. Like, with very few exceptions. Like, Aerith is all about healing, which is nice. Vincent has, like, very fight-altering limits that, you know, last way past the one-turn limits that other characters have. So, like, if they had more of that, that would have been nice, I feel like. But, again, like, it's fine for what it is. Like, I don't
like
really...
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I said, and plus, like, once you, like, eventually you're gonna hit that, damage cap of, like, 9,999, and at that point, for limit breaks, you're probably gonna, in terms of strategy, you're probably gonna choose the characters who can hit multiple times, like, Cloud's final one, or I think it was either Yuffie, Sid, or both of them who deal multiple damage.
Yeah.
Some of their...
Yeah, so, like... Yeah. But, like, for what it is, it's a good first outing for the system, I feel like. That said, I also feel like the way the system interacts with Aerith and everything does make the whole shock of losing Aerith all the more impactful. Because Aerith is always going to be your healer. Like, her limits are always going to be your heals. You are more than likely going to have her in your party as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when she dies, and that tool is taken away, that imposes a feeling of loss, and, like, you always feel that gap there on a mechanical level, bringing the player kind of in parity to where the characters are, in a way.
Yeah, and this is where I will say, like, sorry, Mac.
Not...
I'm talking. Hold sorry, dog wants attention. So I'm petting him as I talk. But yeah, this is where I feel like, FF7, I don't think, you should approach it as, like, you know, oh, I have to min-max this stuff, because, like, if you want that full impact of Aerith, it's likely going to be lost on you if you know spoilers and, like, oh, well, I'm not going to use her that much, because
Yeah.
that's what happened to me. So, like, I didn't end up using her much because I didn't figure, like, you're not going to be that It's literally that skit, ProZD did of, like, when he loses calls or whatever. It's like I invested so much points into you, but you really are a dickweed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Also, Rosa, I see your message. I wish I could reach through the internet and grab you as well.
Wait,
Like-
why is Twitch in French?
Like, I like 7, but it's not 6. Anyway. So yeah. Overall, fantastic game. Its reputation is very much overblown, I feel like. Oh, you were making a 13 joke. I thought you were talking about, the number we were coming in on. I will find you, Rosa. Anyway.
She's your sibling. Rosa is your big sibling.
No,
You
I'm
already
the
know what
older
it is.
one! For fuck's
Oh,
sake!
right. I forgot.
stop acting like the younger one.
Oh my god.
Your siblings, you know where you live. You know where you sleep.
Rosa, why have you corrupted even my panel to be like that?
Hey, this is all natural.
Look, I took my meds a long time ago, okay? Give me some slack.
Anyway.
It's been 12 hours.
Yes.
It's you, Dad. I learned it from watching you.
God. So yeah, like, 7 is a great game. I do not want to take away from that. However, I do feel like it has gotten the reputation of being the best of the series, primarily because of nostalgia, and it was so many people's first RPG.
It was it was like a very big deal back
Yes.
in the days.
Yes.
Also, I feel like
English is hard.
Also, I feel like that problem you mentioned with the latter half of FF6
Yes.
and how characters don't feel like they interact at the right times or whatever, how that worked. I feel like unfortunately in the original, Yuffie and Vincent are hit with this the hardest because they're optional characters.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You don't really see them in different scenes.
I hated that.
Like, there were a few special cases, like, if you have Vincent or Yuffie in your party at the end of Disc 1, they will show up and react to Aerith's death. Outside of their individual quests, though, they are not really there.
Yeah, the only exception I feel like is if you bring Vincent for the final Hojo fight, he will actually comment on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yes. Yeah. So, onto the tier list it goes. And I know a lot of people are going to be mad if I don't put it on S, but
No, it doesn't deserve to be honest.
yeah,
Where you feel it goes.
I feel like it is good at the bottom of A.
This is your tier list. Be controversial.
Oh boy, we'll get there.
I know.
So, I actually forgot Tactics was up next. Let me pull up something
Oh,
for Tactics as far as the music goes.
I actually didn't expect that.
I forget a lot about when Tactics came out. It's like it came out right after 7.
Yeah.
I want to say not even a full year, I want to say.
Let's see, in North America, Tactics came out in January 28th, 1998. Japanese release was June 20th, 1997. Now let's compare that to Final Fantasy VII.
Let's see. It's also hard to pick a song because there's no real overworld in Tactics.
Mm.
Also, it would explain why Cloud's an optional party member if you do enough side quests.
Also,
Yeah.
Cloud in Tactics blows. I'm sorry.
Oh God. Yeah, even in War of the Lions, he sucks.
Yeah.
Like, that one has like a few more guest characters. They are all better than Cloud.
Yeah, like, it's honestly kind of
Yes, but-
impressive just how bad Cloud is in Tactics.
Yeah, and like
But
the main thing
Tactics
is
came
because
out
like
in a
you
matter
need
of
his
months after
sword.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Like,
main thing is like you need his sword in order to actually even use his limit breaks.
Yes. And the sword that enables his skills is worse than the equipment you get in the second town of the game.
And it's hidden on another map or something like that.
It's hidden on another map where you have to have a specific skill, step on a specific tile, and then you have a chance of finding it.
Oh God.
Bullshit.
It is esoteric as fuck. So, yep. Battling.
So when are we talking about her, guys?
Moving on.
But yeah, so in Japan, Final Fantasy VII was January 31st, 97. Tactics was June 20th, 97.
Yeah, so not even a full year.
It was like just shy of 5 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Battle and exploration looks have once again been unified, primarily because Tactics doesn't have exploration segments. It is just linked battles, effectively, with story bits. And I gotta say, the sprite work here is some of the best ever. I adore the animations in Tactics. Like, there's just so much charm to this art style, in my opinion. So, music is a big deal here, and why I have just settled on hitting shuffle on a playlist instead of looping a single song. Because this was the first time Uematsu didn't do the music. This was all done by Hitoshi Sakamoto. And it has such a heavier emphasis on stringed instruments and horns, giving a far grander feel to everything. And there is not a single track in this soundtrack that doesn't use, like, the main leitmotif in some way. Speak of the devil. That was bizarrely well timed. Thank you, song. But yeah, like, I do kind of miss the more prog rock sort of battle themes of older games, but it would absolutely not feel appropriate for Tactics. And the atmosphere that these songs carry with them is so palpable. So, plot. This is probably one of the densest plots of the series.
Yeah, I'll admit the story of Tactics, like later on, is very hard for me to follow.
Like, it's originally framed as historians going through, like, texts that the church had deemed illegal, and it's all like cloak and dagger stuff going on in the background, and the story honestly feels like it should be a side story for a different game in places. Because, like, while all the big, important political movings are going on, they are happening, like, 20 miles to the right of your characters. While
Yeah,
you
and also
are...
doesn't-
Yep. Go ahead.
And also doesn't help, like, there's basically like kind of a secondary protagonist that you don't really play as,
Yeah.
or at least a secondary character who's doing his own thing that's very important.
Yeah, like the framing of the historians and all kind of sets up Delita as the main character of history. And you are looking into the story of somebody else that was effectively erased from history and telling that story. So whenever you get glimpses of this other story running in parallel, it feels like that almost should be the main focus while you're dealing with the church and its machinations to try and take over a nation. But like, this is most blatantly the most, I don't want to say the most political of the series, but like one of the most political of the series, because the nobles suck.
Yeah.
Like, to the point that commoners are literally used as meat shields. Which is, why Delita being, this common-born king, effectively, is such a big deal in the world. And rather than watching him rise to power, you're going on the opposite path. Your character starts noble born, but gets like excommunicated from society as a heretic, and it does eventually get into like the more fantastical elements with magic and bullshit, but it's done in such a way that feels so grounded in like actual history and stuff. Characters are kind of a mixed bag. Come from a variety of backgrounds. Like, there's a guy that is married to a dragon that you can get. There's a robot that you can recruit. You can recruit Cloud.
I was about to say base to the guy married to a dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, life goals. This man is living the dream.
But like, one of the things that kind of holds back some of the characterization here is the fact that once a character joins your party, they are subject to the permadeath rules, where if they get KO'd and spend a certain amount of turns KO'd, they will just disintegrate on the battlefield. Removed from your party, they are dead, no coming back. So they basically have their character arcs, join your party, and then they are non-entities in the rest of the story. Which is unfortunate, but there are also just so many characters with really good character arcs that it never really feels like you're missing anything. And there's enough like technical obfuscation to kind of make those characters feel more important than they end up being. Like, Agrias will stop being relevant to the story a good, I want to say like third of the way into the game, but she feels relevant just because of how her character actually like interacts with the other battle systems and whatnot. Because, let's just get to the gameplay. This battle or character building feels like a more like a midpoint between the granularity that 7 offers and the uniqueness that 6 wanted to put into each character. So like, we are discarding ATB completely here, purely turn-based, and rather than having like player faces and enemy faces like Fire Emblem or other tactical RPGs at the time. It's whoever has their speed, like turn orders based on speed. But yeah, lots of variables where you can make just about some of the most broken character combinations ever. Like, you can have somebody train as a monk so that they learn how to punch harder with their fists than they could ever swing a sword, and then turn them into a ninja where they then start dual wielding their fists.
Oh yeah.
And like just finding the synergies between different skill sets is some of the most fun of the game. And the major characters bring an extra layer to that as they have their own unique jobs that overwrite Squire. So like Agrias will have her own pool of sword spells that only she can use, which makes her stand out from the rest of the party, because like there's just situations that Agrias is more equipped to deal with than others. Of course, that also means you have to pay service to the Thunder God Cid, who takes all of these sword-based spells that other characters have and consolidates them into one character. So when he joins the party, a good, 8 or 9 other characters become irrelevant almost instantly. And, it's kind of ridiculous just how much value Cid brings to the party in that regard. Because, you can have him use Agrias' sword spells to inflict stop or confuse on characters. Or you can have him use Meliadul's sword spells to just break enemy equipment.
I mean, the biggest indicator that Cid is extremely OP is that if Cid permadies in your party, you have 8 people to replace him.
Yes. And
it takes 8 people to replace one Cid.
Yes. And it honestly, actually, given his actual place in the story, I'm not entirely sure if he is ever actually subjected to the permadeath status now. Because, he is a political figure that effectively is helping you in secret when he joins the party. So it would be a big time paradox if he died in some random battle in a backwoods forest or something.
Of course, the rich get free healthcare.
Yeah. But one of the things that I really did like about the gameplay, and I think is actually only in the PlayStation version, I could be wrong. I don't remember it being in War of the Lions, but whenever you cast a spell or use a special ability like that, there's I want to say 10% chance that before the spell animation plays out, you get a short little text bubble with an incantation. To the point where the incantations for the sword spells are worked into the raid boss fights for Orban Monastery in 14. It's to the point where I knew what was coming from certain abilities before I ever saw them, just because I recognized what they did in tactics, effectively. Which is a really neat little callback, but we'll get to that when we talk about 14, and I feel like 14 is going to be its own stream, almost. So, overview. Fantastic story, if dense. Has some of the best customization options. Is also one of the most overlooked games in the series, I feel like. because it came out only like 6 months after 7, it really did get overshadowed, I feel like. And I do feel like more people need to play it. That said, it's hard to actually recommend a version because there's only 2 versions. There's the original PlayStation, which doesn't have voice acting, and it's like cutscenes are fairly rudimentary, while as the War of the Lions on PSP introduces voice acting, has like gorgeously animated cutscenes and everything, but it has an engine glitch that I cannot in good conscience just recommend the vanilla PSP version, because
there is. Sorry.
Yeah. The spell effects for tactics in War of the Lions slows down the game to such a degree that the sound effects will play at like normal speed, but will finish before the animation actually starts in cases.
That's a lot.
Like, it slows down to where a, like, 5-second spell animation on the PlayStation will take upwards of 30 seconds to play out. And, like, there are fixes for that, but that requires getting into PSP emulation, and that's understandably a hurdle that some just don't want to deal with. That said, if anyone wants access to that, hit me up and I will see what I can do, because I have the patched version of that on the old PC that I need to get off of the old PC, but again, that's something I will be dealing with later. Anyway. So, where is the icon for tactics? I know it's on here. Where are you? I swear to God. If I need to... Hold up. Annoying that I need to do this, but yeah, thankfully I've got the files saved on my computer, so where is it? Tierlist images. That's not what I want. Technical difficulties, everyone.
The scuff is real.
Yeah.
Hey, just like the game.
Anyway, real quick, save image as desktop.
I'm cold. I'm gonna get another blanket.
Okay. Anyway. I would put tactics right between 6 and 4 on S tier.
I figured.
Okay. Now on to 8. So, aesthetics for 8 are closer to FF6 in that they unified the exploration and battle again, and actually use more animation to convey, various moods and whatnot. And also just, I feel like 8 is more colorful than 7 in some ways. Because, 8 is not, under the thumb of a mega corporation that rules the entire world. So things are a bit more vibrant there. but that's not to say that 8 looks better than 7. Because, like, especially in the battle scenes, like, these are some jagged-ass polygons here. Like, they tried, and in a lot of ways succeeded in building on what they did with 7, but there's still just a little bit of jank that kind of pulls it back a bit. Music is a comparatively or relatively mixed affair as well, as far as like just the overall vibe. Because like you will go from acoustic guitars in small towns to big synthy town or sounds in towns and whatnot. And like it's all really good though. Just very like you could take 2 songs at opposite ends of the spectrum and you would never know they were from the same OST unless you've played the game effectively. Also, it should be noted that 8 has the first instance of a lyrical track. One Winged Angel does not count because it only had the one word in, Eyes on Me, which is something of an odd thing to talk about because it is both in the world itself, but the way it's used could not possibly be in the world itself. It's like it is hard to talk about in isolation, let me put it that way. So, moving on to the plot. The plot has a lot of big ideas. It's got a lot of very interesting ideas that are unfortunately hampered primarily by the translation, I feel like. Also, I forgot
Time to bitch about translation. Also, I'm back.
Yes, welcome back. And, like, a big thing that I will always talk about is how Squall changed from, like, the Japanese script to the American script. Because, like, Squall's catchphrase in FF8 is ... whatever. And that usually,
Which is
like...
not what it was in Japanese.
Yes. In Japanese, it is ... sorry.
Or
So-
my bad, I've seen.
Yeah. So, like, he goes from somebody that is way in over his head, but is trying, but doesn't know how to operate in the responsibilities that have been thrusted upon him, to aloof jerkass.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that just hit the cutting room floor as far as, like, the overall world building and, like, the Laguna and Squall's stories were meant to be kind of in parallel, but, like, 90% of Laguna's stuff ended up getting cut, and Laguna being downgraded from, like, second protagonist to secondary character. And there's a lot of really good stuff in there. Like, I will even go to bat for the contrivance of the Guardian Forces making people forget they grew up together, sort of thing. Because, like, from what I saw, there were, like, bits of dialogue that were either relegated to obscure conversations with side characters you'd never really have a reason to talk to, or just hit the cutting room floor, where, like, the arrangement with the Guardian Forces was, like, they would sacrifice a part of their brain to effectively make themselves invulnerable to the mind control that the sorceresses, represented. and that memory loss was part of that deal. It just was poorly explained in the translation and ended up sounding like a sort of ass pull at the time.
It's almost like your memory lives in your brain or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the idea that, you know, these soldiers that are specifically trained to deal with magical beings beyond normal nature would have to have like weird powers to kind of contradict that, which also kind of explains the whole junctioning system in a diegetic way, which I think is interesting. As for the characters, there's not a whole lot of character outside of Squall and Renoa, really. Like, the rest of the party gets their one character trait, and...
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs, yeah. And, like, they pull on those character traits enough to get, you know, the illusion of, you know, fully fleshed out characters, but they are very much not the focus. And that's not a bad thing, necessarily, because, like, it is very much a story about specifically Renoa and Squall. And the rest of the cast are very enjoyable for what they are. But, like, again, though, Squall got hit the worst by the translation. Oh, Hime, don't worry. Don't worry about that. It'll be fine. I promise.
Did that have an effect, like how he be portrayed in other games too? Because, like, you know, like in Dissidia or even Kingdom Hearts.
I feel like in Dissidia and Kingdom Hearts he's closer to what he was intended to be.
Yeah.
That said, like, Dissidia is like the Japanese version of Squall. Full stop. Kingdom Hearts is, I feel like, closer to the American version of Squall just because Nomura.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like,
Like,
the funny thing is, by game 2, he ends up kind of being like the most cheerful version of Squall because he actually smiles and shit.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be one of those guys that, you know, just shits on Nomura all the time. But, like, Nomura has a very distinct style that leans closer to, like, the more broody nature of, like, how 7 was interpreted, I feel like.
Oh, don't worry, we saw the DC figure designs.
Oh god, yeah. That Batman design was a choice. That said. Gameplay, we are back to ATB, largely unchanged from how it works in 7. Magic is the big change, where they are items that can be stored and then attached to spells. And you are either going to love how the spells work in 8, or you're going to loathe it. It is very...
Like me, you don't know enough English to figure it out.
And, like, admittedly, the tutorials are not great about explaining it. And, like, the idea that 1 Fyra is equal to 10 fires, or 10 Fyra to 1 Fyraga, you have to just figure that out on your own. But, like, this also, again, gives you some of the most granular control over your character's stats. To the point that you can easily get max stats if you're willing to put in the time and grind and figure out the stats and what goes where and put that puzzle together before hitting the first major boss. I say major because, like, a lot of that doesn't open up until after you fight Ifrit, but after that, the game is your oyster to take over your knee and break in half if you want. That said, a lot of people struggled with it, and I don't blame them. Because, like, how stats interact with the drawing system, how the spells interact with stats, etc., is not very well explained. The tutorial was absolute garbage, yeah. But FF8, I do feel like, doesn't get enough credit for not being FF7 again.
Yeah.
Because, like,
Yep.
FF7 was such a massive blockbuster that whatever came after it was inevitably going to get shat on just because it's not 7.
Yep.
So they
Honestly,
didn't even try. They made it its own thing, and I really do feel like it gets a lot of unearned hatred because of it. It's just not 7 on its
like,
own. On its
I
own.
honestly
Go ahead.
I honestly really liked 8 a lot. Part of that is because I think 8 was the first PlayStation Final Fantasy I played.
Yeah.
But like, I was able to figure out how magic system and junctioning works, and dimension triple triad.
Yes.
And I just had an absolute blast messing around with the ways to customize characters and such. And I also very much enjoyed Squall's character development, even with
Yes.
the translation issues.
Yeah, like, Squall is a really, really good character. Like, he, even with the translation actively trying to make him more of, you know, for lack of a better comparison point, they try to make him Sasuke Uchiha before Sasuke even existed. But it still very much communicates that this is a kid way in over his head, thrust into a leadership position he is not equipped to deal with. And, like, all the adults in his life have failed him, and the weight of the world...
Continue to do so.
Yeah, and the weight of the world is thrust upon his shoulders. And he has several understandable mental breakdowns.
Yeah.
But, like, it is flawed, but it is an extremely good game that more people need to give a second shot, I feel like.
I want to say that I love Final Fantasy VII. It's my favorite, but I have always wanted a remake of Final Fantasy VIII far more than
Yes.
7, because I have always felt that precisely 8 needs a remake so people can actually look at it with proper eyes.
Yes.
And not with the shadow of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Not even a remake the way they're remaking Final Fantasy VII. If they just
It
even
needs
if
a
they
proper
only
remake.
relocalize the whole
One.
thing,
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
that
I
would
would say
be an improvement,
relocalize,
probably.
brush coat of paint.
Most police have a couple of points that were badly explained.
Yeah.
Even in Japanese, in the Japanese version, they weren't very well explained. Just police those parts and just go on.
yeah.
What
This
I would
game
like-
deserves it far more than any other Final
Yeah.
Fantasy game. I feel that Final Fantasy VIII needs a remake for that reason, because all the other games, even if with all graphics and all systems, they are still very enjoyable.
All the games have their champions, really, except 8, it feels like.
Yeah.
What I
And
really want to see from 8 is, well, not from 8 itself, but I would love to see a video of somebody who's like very, very good at it and can just break it down and explain how you get massively OP with the junction system, which is supposed to be possible, but never figured out.
I mean, I can do about that. or you can do that.
You still have to play 6 for me.
I know. And yes,
The thing is, like,
Adding 8 on the pile.
yep.
and
And
it was kind of explained to me how to break the game through the card system. Which I'm sorry, I went away for a bit. Did you guys talk about that? Or?
not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting there. But like, yeah, there are some wacky shit in there, like Cry's mentioning. Like the Devour command, where your character runs forward, it cuts to a censored, like, a field of flowers because it is censoring something that is too graphic to show on TV or whatever.
Doesn't it say, like, please stand by or something?
Yeah. Like, it's kind of the same thing as the nice boat meme.
Uh-huh.
So, like, it has a very, very wacky, like, sense of humor in that. Yeah, nice boat before nice boat existed. Exactly. The T-Rex are actually not bullshit. You just have to know how to deal with them. And that is actually, like, a good point of tutorializing that the game actually does. Because the T-Rex are early game enemies that are way stronger than you have any real chance of dealing with unless you blind them. And that is your tutorial of, hey, status effects are very powerful here, sort of thing. Even the end game ones are manageable. But also, like... Oh, is it just me? Okay, no, that's totally fair, Tora. But yeah, like, just... A lot of it comes down to, like, just preparedness. Like, a lot of the game comes down to how well your character's built, etc. There's a very wacky side to 8 that I do feel like gets overshadowed. But, yeah, like, a great game that more people need to give a second chance to. Oh yeah, the FF8 Marlboro are the absolute worst in the series.
Yeah, I kind of remember. I think that's where I rage quit.
Yeah, just... The Marlboro are just... Brr. Also, I'm noticing... I forgot to write anything about Mystic Quest. That will be where we start with Part 2, though. Anyway, so... For FF8... This is going to come down to mainly personal preference. I feel like it's a B, personally. A high B, but a B all the same.
Yeah, I can't fault you for that.
Like, it could... There is absolutely an argument to be made for it to be in A. For me, a lot of it just comes down to I'm not a romance guy. And so, like, the romance between Squall and Renoa didn't really hit me as hard as it probably should have. Again, though, that's a personal preference thing.
You have no. So I'm joking.
I
I honestly don't. I'm a romance guy, and I didn't really care about it, to be honest.
Eh,
But
I
then
mean-
again,
valid.
it's like you said with the translation, and plus, like, when I played FF8, it was around that time with, like, I don't know. I don't feel like I was the right age for it. you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, the romance is just as hampered by the shitty localization as the rest of the game.
Yeah. And a remake, not just to be a cash grab or reinvent the story, but to just properly present it, is absolutely something that 8 desperately needs. And now we get to 9. This is where I'm going to get especially spicy, I feel like.
Oh, we're losing the other 30% of the audience.
So. Okay. 9 aesthetically feels like an overcorrection from 7 and 8. All of the sci-fi shit has been stripped out. We are very firmly back into traditional high fantasy. The most we have are steam-powered airships. And I'm gonna be honest, this is... Spiciness starts here. I'm not a fan of how 9 looks. Like, a lot of the background characters especially just do not feel, for lack of a better word, right. They all look off in some way.
Like, it's essentially like an over-exaggerated cartoony way compared to the others.
Like, let me see if I can pull up an example
to be honest,
real quick.
Like with 9, while I don't hate it, I also have several copies and never even finished the damn game. But, the look was the number one thing that detracted me away from the game, and it took some people slapping me up the side of the head to get over that. Yeah,
but like, I'm just gonna put that guy on in there. Like, yes, it's an intentional thing, but look at this guy. Like,
Yikes.
I feel like that's racist somewhere.
Like, it is very much an intentional thing, but the fact that so many of the side characters look like cavemen without eyes, either having like a bandana over them or a belt across their eyes or something, is very off-putting to me.
Fair.
And then there are guys that just have 4 arms and no explanation. Or, like, there's callbacks to earlier games with no explanation. Like, early on in the game, Garnet has the traditional, like, FF1 white mage robe for all of, like, 15 minutes. And it really feels like the game elbowing you in the side, like, hey, remember that? Remember that? Like, it gets better about that as it goes on, and then you have Vivi. Like, I love Vivi as a character. I love what they did with the Black Mages in the story. I wish they looked anything, or, like, it looked like anything other than what they look like. Because the fact that they are just the FF1 Black Mages is so distracting to me. The music is where I'm going to be just unabashedly positive, though. I can't not hear anything from FF9 and not smile. But, like, the soundtrack is just absolutely cozy from start to finish. I love it. No notes. Just A+. Anyway, back to being spicy. It is my stance that you could cut the story in half and you would have a better story. There is so much time that is spent spinning your wheels. Like the Lindblom Hunting Festival thing does not need to be in the game. It's just there to pack the game full of stuff. Like, there's so much going on in the world that it ultimately kind of overshadows its core themes of death and our relation to it, and colonization and everything like that. But there are so many times that the party is split up and one part of the party just doesn't have anything meaningful to do, but they've got to have the screen time. But speaking of the characters, you could cut the roster in half and have a better roster. The FF9 should have given you Zidane, Garnet, Vivi, and Freya. And that's it. Steiner, Amaranth, Aiko, and Kina, not necessary. They only distract. And they also don't have their own, real strong ties to the story in general. Like, Kina especially is the one character that you could just blip out of existence and nobody would miss them. And I feel like that's a problem. Because, even the optional characters in, 6 and 7 had something going for them. Like, Gogo, Yumaro, and Mog in 6 all brought very unique battle abilities to the table that interacted with stuff in very unique ways. Yuffie and Vincent in 7 built the world more without, being necessary for the plot. Kina, Amaranth, Steiner, and Aiko do nothing for the story or the party. They fill roles that the other 4 already fill. To the point that it is honestly kind of arbitrary why Aiko gets spells that Garnet doesn't. Just consolidate the cast. Amaranth is another Zidane. Steiner is another Freya. Vivi doesn't have an analog, but Kina does not really contribute anything unless you spend an inordinate amount of time getting the blue magic. And that in itself is such a pain in the ass to do that it's just not worth it. And then there's the gameplay. I despise the gameplay of 9. I despise it. The ATB is fine. It's whatever. But the way skills and abilities are learned absolutely ruins the experience for me. Because AP is not given out frequently or in enough quantity that you can learn what the game expects you to learn. I'm just talking spells and shit, not the support skills. That's whatever. But you cannot keep up with the game without grinding. And there were several points in my playthroughs of 9 where I was just supremely understated because I just hadn't learned, whatever spell I was working on and was 2 weapons behind where the game expected me to be. And then there's the trance system. It's on paper.
A very different word.
Nope.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Also, the stream is not up on Discord.
It should have the tier list.
It says minimize their application.
Yeah.
There you go.
But
and the music is back.
Okay, I'll just move it over here then. But yeah, just so much of 9 feels like it's big for the sake of being big. They took a game or a story that could have been told on 2 discs and stretched it out across 4, because 7 and 8 had more, or had 3 and more discs, I feel like. And Trance ruins the game, the battle system, because you cannot control it. Like, with limits in 7, you could, once your limit is filled, you are pushed to using your limit because, it overwrites your normal attack. However, you can opt not to, by using spells or abilities, or just pushing a button that reverts it back to attack. But the fact that you cannot control whether or when you go into a trance, and upon ending a battle you lose that, it takes the entire strategic ability of trance and removes it. Like, there had been so many times when I just wanted to run from a fight, waited for Zidane's turn to come up, used the flee command, but then an enemy would hit him as I was mini-wing. He would go into a trance, and flee would change to something else because, that's how trance works. It just swaps out one moveset for another, effectively. And I was locked into a fight that I did not want to take. Or I would be trying to save up a big hit from a trance to open up a boss fight with, only to hit a random enemy 2 steps from a boss and get forced into trance there, and lose any kind of preparation I had going. And on top of how absolute dog shit the AP system is, I have never wanted to play a mainline game less than FF9 except for one other time, and we will get to that. So yeah, there's a lot to like about 9, but it is a bloated mess of unnecessary systems and story cul-de-sacs that take away from the overall narrative. This could have been 2 discs. Instead, it was 4. There's a good game in there, but it needed another editorial pass. And for me, at least, it's the most frustrating of the PlayStation games. Just because it's close to being good, but isn't.
A game that has potential is vastly more frustrating than a game that is just fucking shit.
Yes. So, that's why I am putting 9 on the D tier.
Fair.
Hey, D for death. It's
Okay. So, for 10, music-wise, we have another issue in that there is no real overworld theme, because there's no overworld, really. So, like, I could do Otherworld, but I don't think that's quite representative of the overall vibe. But let's see. Is there an OST playlist I can do a shuffle on? There we go. Okay, let's do this. You know, that's a good place to start
Yeah.
as far as like tone
Yeah.
setting goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have loved
Yeah.
Otherworld, but this works.
Yeah. So 10. It's hard to just even talk about 10 with To Xanarkin playing in the background without getting kind of emotional, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame you. This is getting to me.
Like, To Xanarkin is one of those piano compositions that is just immaculate in so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played 10 and I didn't particularly liked it, but this makes me emotional as well.
Yeah. So, aesthetics. This is probably the biggest jump in quality since, like, the jump from the Famicom to SNES. But, like, also, I want to point out that the picture on the left there, I had to go hunting for. Because so much of what's actually online is from the remaster. Which, while a good remaster, because the PS2's architecture was so unique to itself, the remaster kind of fucks over the lighting engine. And it just looks so different because of that. Like, I even had to crop that image to get a comparison out of the image effectively. So, yeah. What else is there to talk about aesthetically? Yeah, character design can be hit or miss because, oh baby, there are some interesting fashion choices in there. Because, like, just fucking look at Tidus's outfit.
I try not to. I was looking at Oron mainly.
Yeah. Like, Tidus has a jacket that doesn't fully come down over his chest. And then suspenders with asymmetrical pant leggings. Like, there's a lot going on there. And, like, it does a good job of, like, feeling fantastical in some sense. But, yeah. Also, there's Lulu's dress that is entirely made of belts.
Yep. Fucking Nomura.
Like, overall, I think it works. But
Well,
it
at
is...
that point, the belt thing wasn't so overdone that it was grounded into the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, I do think that 10 is some of Nomura's best work as far as design goes. It is very... Yeah, it is very much a your mileage may vary sort of thing, though.
Yeah, I was about to say with Tidus' design, I just wanted to throw in a joke eventually of just how, man, no wonder your dad bullies you.
So, music. A lot, for the most part, is more low-key than other games, but it has its big bombastic moments and everything, especially in the fights. But there's a more emotional core to it, really. And there's just not a bad song on the whole thing. They're all good. Like, Fight Me. I love this soundtrack. It's some songs are louder than others, apparently. Anyway. So, it is the first isekai of the series.
I hate you.
You're welcome.
You're right, though, but
Yeah,
I hate you.
Exactly! And, like, I have written kind of a jokey version of the plot here, but I really, really enjoyed the plot to 10. It's honestly one of my favorites. with how like generational trauma comes into things, and like Tora mentions, like loss and grief and moving on from disasters and stuff like that. But like the Star Wars butt meme here, talks about special guest character Catholic guilt, and there is a good part of that as well. And I also just want to point out that the dynamic between Tidus and Jecht is something I think is really important, because like there are so many times when a parent is depicted as abusive, and let's be clear, Jecht is an abusive father, but the abuser is like just an irredeemable asshole in some way. And Jecht is an asshole, don't get me wrong, but he's more nuanced than that. And I don't feel like a lot of things really highlight that. Like,
he's very human.
Yes. Like, he is the end product of a society of toxic machismo.
Yes.
And he cares, he just doesn't know how to express that without, being ridiculed effectively. Which is why, there's that disconnect between what Tidus remembers of Jecht and how he is perceived in Spira. Because, like, in Spira, he's got that room to be vulnerable and not be ridiculed for it. And he has, like, genuine connections that form. And he goes on to talk about how much he loves his wife and kid in ways that he could never really express to the wife and kid.
And we see a little bit of that in Dissidia as well.
Yeah.
With the You've Grown Strong scene.
Yes. And I am absolutely with Tora on this one, in that of Tidus's parents, his mom was worse. Like, Jecht was...
Interesting.
Like, Jecht was an asshole, don't get me wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
But, like, the one scene where we see, what Tidus's mom is like, she is constantly fawning over Jecht, like you would think a stalker would with their celebrity idol. And it's Jecht that's like, hey, the kid's crying, shouldn't we do something about that? And Tidus's mom is like, he'll deal with it. Like, she is portrayed as just this absolute nothing of a person in Tidus's life. Like, there's a reason Tidus dislikes Jecht, but can't even muster an emotion for his mother. So, yeah, Jecht had no idea what he was doing, but was trying. His mom didn't fucking bother. Anyway, moving on. So, the characters. The characters all really do, like, kind of slot into the general fantasy tropes, like, the mage and thief and everything like that. And I do think it is important to point out that while Tidus is the point of view character, it's Yuna's story. She is the main character. And also, I want to go to bat for my boy Wakka.
Oh boy.
So, I fully admit that, at the start of the game, he is the racist uncle that doesn't want to, or that nobody wants to really be around. But you've got to kind of take into consideration the society he was raised in. Because, like, I'm gonna be real. I was kind of like Waka when I was a kid, because I still live in like the deep red parts of Illinois. But like,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, but as bad as Waka starts out, as he's challenged on his beliefs, he changes for the better. Like, yes, he is an absolute asshole to Riku when she joins the party, but gradually he, softens on that and eventually becomes, ride or die for Riku included. And when you get to Xanarkand and the big reveal of the faith being, built on a lie, and that this was all just human sacrifice for theatrical effect, effectively. He has...
Human sacrifices all the way down.
Yep, and just like he does have a major crisis of faith, but ultimately, when, that crisis is forced on him, what's left is his love of of his family, found or otherwise, and not the zealotry that had been inflicted upon him, effectively. And like, I do think that's a far better portrayal of that sort of thing than most games can manage. And one that is kind of necessary in some ways. There's hope there. Of course, it's not on the people that, the hatred of the Wakas of the world is directed at to fix them, but there is still that hope that they can fix themselves effectively.
Makes sense.
And I also want to take a second to point out that a lot of the characterization comes down to the absolutely phenomenal voice work that the entire cast gets.
Also, because it needs to be said, the laughing scene was intended to be bad.
Yes.
Yes.
Like,
I thought that was via some context.
yeah.
Unfortunately, there are just a lot of people out there with zero ability to process. What's the word?
Yeah.
What's the word?
Like, the meme scene literally cuts like half a second before the characters descend into like actual legitimate laughs at just how ridiculous the whole thing was. And
Yep.
really kind of drives home that point of forcing yourself to smile in the wake of overwhelming despair. And yeah, just the voice cast from start to finish, absolutely amazing. I will not hear anything else about it. Gameplay is back to fully turn-based, and while, incorporating elements of the active time battle in that, turn orders based on speed and actions taken, updated in real time, and is one of the most fun systems to really mess with, as you can just absolutely game the fuck out of certain encounters so that enemies do not get a turn. And it's one of those, what I would call a perfect information puzzle, where you have all the information you need, and if you can slot things in to just the right order, everything goes your way, and it is so much fun to just absolutely break. So, it's no surprise that 10 is one of the more popular games in the series. Just the graphical jump from 9 to 10 is enough to really cement itself in people's minds. The world building is some of the best, and the combat system is just so much fun to dig into. And yeah, as we mentioned before, even in the memed on scenes, once you put the context in, their absurdity just kind of crumbles away, and what you're left with is just good. May not be peak Final Fantasy, but it's definitely up there.
Also, why did the Silent Hill music start playing?
That's not Silent Hill music. That is track 7 from the soundtrack called Eerie.
Well, it's working.
So, 10. Hmm. 10 is going into A. The question is where on A?
Well, definitely not above 6.
No, 6 is in S.
Oh, that's 5. Sorry.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I can't see shit. It's not you. It's not you, it's me.
Yeah. And yeah, I would definitely put 10 above 7, personally.
Mm-hmm.
I would also put it above 3. Main question is, do I put it above 5? I would put it above 5, personally.
Oh, tier list.
Yep.
So are we also covering 10-2 or no?
Yes. So, 10-2 is an interesting one to talk about. Because, oh boy, is it one of the more divisive ones. Okay. Shuffle. So yeah. Here, you'll notice that the images for the slide are more... they're high def, because I cannot find images online that are not from the remaster.
Gee, I wonder why.
So, like... that said, like, this is also a good illustrative experience in that, you know, how flat the lighting looks as compared to the first game. But yeah, overall, very little has changed in the overall aesthetic. The outfit designs have gotten a bit weirder. And yes, I'm absolutely with you on that, Tora. But we will get there. But yeah, most of the aesthetics are just iterative upgrades. Music is probably where people either come down on or with it or against it, because oh boy, is it way more, you know, like J-pop influence, and if that's not your thing, you're really not going to have a good time with 10-2. I don't mind it personally, but also I would like to point out that the lyrical tracks are significantly better in Japanese. Like, if you've not heard the Japanese versions, I'm not gonna pull them up on stream because that would absolutely get the VOD muted. But the flow of everything feels way more natural in Japanese than the translated versions we got in English. Like, they're not bad in English, but you can tell they are, they are Japanese songs written by someone fluent in Japanese, translated into English.
Yep.
But yeah, lots of piano, lots of synth, lots of synth. Like, I almost feel like the OST playlist is kind of... Wait, hold on. There is a full minute of just dead silence on this video.
Wow.
Like, I just skipped through a minute at the back end of this video in 3 clicks. What the fuck was that? Anyway. This is more, indicative of what the soundtrack actually sounds like. Lots of synth tones in there. But yeah, that's really what made 10-2 the most polarizing, I feel like, because it comes out the gate swinging with that J-pop. So, the plot is honestly very fascinating to me, just because there are so few games that really examine what an RPG world is like after the big bad is beaten. And the turmoil and rebuilding and all feels very human, very realistic, given, the structure of the world before and after. That said, there is a lot of time spent just faffing about in stories that don't really connect to the overall plot. That said, I do feel like that is an important part of the game, because, like, people just getting their lives back together is such an important part of 10-2. And the fucking about really is the ideal to be fought for, effectively. Again, though, like Tora mentioned, do not do the 100% ending. Do not. Just don't. I will get into that later, but the quote-unquote normal ending is so much better and in line with the actual framing and themes of the game of 10 and 10-2. The 100% ending is so bizarre, but anyway. Characters, Yuna and Riku, are largely the same as they are at the end of 10, with just being more cheerful. Yuna, in particular, is more assertive. Focus is mainly on newcomer Pain, who you can make a lot of jokes about being the edgy OC inserted into a fanfic, but honestly, I feel like Pain is well done. Just...
Can I make a terrible joke?
Sure.
She's the Mega 10 waifu of X. 10.
She kind of is? Really?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
she kind of looks like she came straight out of a Shin Megami Tensei game. But yeah, there's a lot of the new power structures that, Pain is more tied into. So, having that character there, makes more sense than it would to have Yuna or Riku have, those ties. So I do think she is a well done character. And I do like the fleshing out of the old war that's, hinted at in 10, but doesn't get a whole lot of the thing. But, like, both sides are equally as bad in that war, and everybody suffers as a result.
It's almost like real war.
Yes. And, like, I will say that, the constant need of side quests and minigames does undercut some of the character moments, but overall, it's fine. And yes, I do think, like, Pain should have had a bit more focus on her, but
Yeah, that's
gameplay...
like
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the weird thing about the story. With some of them more focus on pain and like some of the other characters. Apparently, you have to replay the game or something in order to like unlock extra boss fights with extra cutscenes or something.
Yep. Yeah, New Game Plus has like a whole dungeon, I believe, associated with it, which really should have been in the base game. There was no reason to relegate that to New Game Plus. But speaking of battle, there's the battle theme kick in, and
That
it's
sounds like Devil May Cry 3.
no, it
That's the only
doesn't.
one, right?
No, but yeah.
No, I'm serious.
It. No, there's nothing in DMC3 that sounds remotely like this.
Okay, if you say so.
That being said, I can kind of see Dante doing the Peter Parker dance in Spider-Man 3 to this song.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So, I will say that 10-2 has one of my favorite iterations of the active time battle stuff. Because, like, there is a lot more, like, usage of the whole ass controller here. So you can be, like, menuing a move while another move is happening with, like, the trigger happy making you spam a shoulder button. Stuff like that. The international revision has a Pokemon-ass mode to it where you can capture monsters and make them part of the party, which is wild, but there's also systems where you can load up multiple jobs for a fight, and changing between jobs can give you extra bonuses, or just replace the entire party with a character-specific job that just acts as a sort of limit break, almost. It's one of the most fun to really just experiment with.
Yeah, that mode definitely feels like you're almost playing as a boss character in a
Yeah.
way with how it looks and feels.
So yeah. Very polarizing. I do think that, like, if it were released today, it would have a better shot, but, like, it would also have more assholes being, complaining about woke shit and whatnot, but, they complain about everything, so fuck them. Anyway, this is where I get to bitch about the quote-unquote true ending. So, the narration is framed as Yuna recounting her adventures to Tidus, effectively. And since Tidus dies at the end of 10, it's kind of like somebody going out to a grave and talking to a gravestone. Like, and the normal ending really reinforces that with the whole idea of, hey, I'm okay, things are rough, but we're getting there, don't worry about me, sort of, feel to it. The 100% ending, for whatever fucking reason, decides to bring Tidus back to life. Which...
He wasn't even real to begin with.
Exactly. But bringing him back to life undercuts the thematic core of 10 to the point that it's honestly kind of retroactively harming the ending of the first game. And it is a move that absolutely baffles me to no end, especially considering the stupid fucking light novel sequel 10-3 where Tidus gets his head blown off by a bomb that he thinks is a blitzball.
I was gonna
thank
ask
God you
about
mentioned
that. I was
because
gonna ask
uploaded
you
the
if
GIF to text chat.
I was gonna ask you if the Titus kicks a bomb and explodes is more of a detriment to the first game than the ending of X2.
No, like, and let me be perfectly clear by what I mean when I say he kicks a bomb and thinks it looks like a blitzball. I'm not talking about an inanimate object. I am talking about this fucker.
Isn't this fucker in 10?
Yes.
Tyler should know this.
Yes. Yes, he
was
should.
sleeping. Maybe he was sleeping, just woke up like, oh fuck this asshole, and just blew his ass up.
Yeah, and the way it's described makes no fucking sense because it's an explosion, but it only decapitates him.
Yeah, that's not how explosions work.
Exactly. Like, just it is such a better, more satisfying conclusion to just end 10 at the quote-unquote normal ending of 10-2. So,
Yeah. Also, when it comes to that ending, I do want to mention the way you get that ending is complete and utter fucking bullshit.
yes.
Because, like, here's the thing, like, okay, already you have to 100% the game. That means digging up, like, every single piece of dialogue. That's already annoying. But then when you try to connect, like, the actual story bits that lead to the true ending, it really doesn't make much sense because it would make more sense if, like, maybe you unlock, say, a ghost version of the character to act as your party member at best. Because it's like, oh, you have to mash a button here or something like that, and then do this, and then do that. It's not like it's correlating with, like, the previous gods or whatever, which I'm assuming that happens at the true ending, but even then, you don't really connect the dots aren't really connected.
Yeah. Like, it's just a train wreck. The 100% ending. And the fact that there are events that are time sensitive. So if you do something out of order, you fuck yourself out of that 100% completion. And there's no indication of that until you just notice, oh hey, this quest marker went away. Fuck.
Yeah,
That
like,
is the
quests are
worst.
available and even have dark endings. Because I think, like, one of Seymour's people who were exiled to the forest gets slaughtered if you do a quest the wrong way or something.
Yup. So, that all said, like, I do really like 10-2. It is kind of a mess, though, so I'm going to put it in B, but, like, high B.
Yeah, B tier sounds pretty good for that. Pretty fair.
So, now we get into one of the hardest games to talk about, for me, at least. Let me get some music going for it. So, 11 is difficult to talk about because it is one of those games that I have not actually put a whole lot of time into. I used to play...
It's gone now.
It's not, actually.
It's not?
Nope. It's still going.
How the fuck?
Like, it is on a like technical scale kind of impressive that like this is an MMO that was running on the PS2.
I thought 11 was the start of what became 14.
Nope.
I'm stupid. Don't mind me.
Nah, 14 came out, it was a mess, and then they just rebooted it.
Yeah. We will talk about 1.0 of 14. Like, that is getting its own thing. But 11 came out before World of Warcraft. So it was very much still in that Wild West of we don't actually know what a good MMO looks like yet, sort of thing. So they were trying their best. And, like, for the time, the aesthetics look really good, really. It's lower fidelity than other games because of the MMO structure. But it has this sort of, like, janky... Like, honestly, it looks like an Unreal Tournament or amateur map at times. And I say that affectionately. But the actual structure of 11 is baffling. But, like, I want y'all to take this part that I'm circling with my mouse and just keep that in the back of your head for a while. So, music-wise, it kind of aims for the same tone that the Evil East games are shooting for, and for the most part, it's fine. Very, very traditional fantasy sounding, but there's not a whole lot to say beyond that. Like, it's there. It's music. It accomplishes what it set out to do.
It exists.
As far as the plot and characters go, this is as best as I can figure. Like, the opening moments are very much, a war between the civilized, quote unquote, states and the beastmen. And like, it's unclear where that story is going. But also, the game structure makes it incredibly hard to get anything out of the story beyond the opening bits. And, like, when I say opening bits, the character that I played when I was still playing 11 capped out at level 10.
Jesus.
So, I have an extremely limited ability to engage with the story here.
Were they at least long levels, or...?
It took me 6 months to get to level 10.
Jeez.
Yeah, so... Yeah. Rather long, yes.
And this is a game whose level cap at the base expansion was in the 50s.
Damn.
We will get to why, though. So, remember that little menu that I was circling with my mouse I told you to keep in mind with?
Uh-huh.
You had to menu surf in order to do spells and shit. Like, as if you were in a single-player FF game.
Okay.
You did not have hotkeys, like in 14 or WoW or any other MMO that came out after WoW. In order to do, quick select a spell, you would hold Control, and then you would have F1 through F12. If you needed another bar, you held Control and Alt, and then F1 through F12. And, like, you could, like, add your own personalized little incantations or whatever to it, or say, call out what spell you're using. Like, you see the macros that people use in 14 to do callouts or sound effects or whatever? That was imported from 11. That is the only thing from 11 that 14 took, though.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned using the keyboard to cast your spells. Are you talking about like a PS2 keyboard, or...
This menu right here. Like, I've got it on the screen.
Yes.
This is...
that menu.
You would have to... In order to use magic, you would have to hit up on... Or your up arrow on your keyboard. Or, up on the D-pad. And then right, and then, go through the menus from there. There was no just, like, hitting a single button to press a spell. Or cast a spell. There was
Okay, I must have misunderstood. Sorry.
yeah, so like the menus from like FF4 or whatever are comparable to what you had to do in MMOs, and you had to also be moving while doing that.
Awesome.
It kind of blew.
I bet.
Yeah, this sounds like if I played it back then, I would have lost my patience immediately.
Oh yeah. And there's also like skill chaining that the game just doesn't tell you about.
Oh,
Where
fun. I love when games don't tell me about mechanics that are not only useful but probably essential to play at some point.
yeah, because like especially at high level, like mages for example have like all of these elemental spells, and if you cycle through them in the correct order, they kind of build on each other as far as like damage goes. All right, take care, Tora. But yeah,
Hi, Dora.
the game just does not tell you about that. You have to figure that out on your own. And in some ways, I can see why, because it feels like you're, like studying the arcane arts and learning it for yourself or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's mechanics that you really should be told about up front.
Yeah, and like, I don't think this is a real life constraint that translates very well to a video game, essentially. Like,
Yeah.
sure, that would be nice in real life, or if you're playing D&D with friends, to be all studying your dark arts and everything, but I don't think that works so well in a video game, and especially not an MMO.
Yes. And then there's the way everything is balanced. Because parties are such a big part of Final Fantasy, 11 expected you to be playing with others at all times.
Gross.
Like, when I say that I capped out at level 10, and it took me 6 months to get there, I played for a year.
Jesus.
Because at level 10, the quests that you're sent on, you cannot do by yourself. You have to have a party just to move across zones.
That's disgusting. Was there a party system?
Yes, there was.
Was it good?
I don't know. I never got invited to a party.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what would happen is people would hit that point where you needed a party to continue. And since every zone had like a teleportation crystal to that zone at the entrance, people would just set up like, or just kind of hang around the crystal where no enemies were spawning, put their, looking for party tag on their character profile, and then go AFK, effectively. And just wait for somebody to invite them. And unless you were playing with friends, you got nothing done.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a very efficient or fun system.
And then there's just the hurdle of playing with friends. So in WoW and FF14 and most MMOs, you can pick what server you make a character on. In 11, if you don't have a character made, you go straight into character creation. And then you get assigned to a server.
Oh, that sounds not great.
At random.
Disgusting.
The only way to get to a specific server is to have somebody on that server save up a bunch of gil, in-world money, to buy effectively a password from an NPC that you can then put in during character creation that sends you to that server.
But you have to know somebody probably, well, I probably not have to be offline, but you have to know somebody who's already playing at a high enough level to
Yeah.
make that kind of money.
Yeah. So like, and this was not an insignificant amount of gil. I would say,
No,
I think it
doesn't
was
sound
like
like it.
somewhere around like 10,000 gil,
Jesus.
which is like in the economy of FF11 would have been like normal for like someone in like the level 30s range. But like if you want to make a character with a friend, you just had to keep re-rolling characters until you got lucky, effectively.
That gross.
So there was just a lot of baffling design decisions that just kind of make sense, sort of, in the context that this was before WoW really codified what a good MMO looks like.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, they were making an MMO, but they had no fucking clue what they were doing.
Yeah, the only real examples they had at the time was EverQuest and Ultima Online. And those games are fondly remembered by the people that played them, but nobody is sitting here making arguments that those were actually good MMOs.
Yeah.
So yeah, an extremely ambitious and attempted to pioneer the genre. It's very interesting from an archaeological perspective, but I cannot in good conscience, say go play this game. And like, it's worth saying that it is still ongoing. It's not getting like active content patches or anything, but it is like the servers are up, people can play it, and there are people that are still active. So it's doing something right. But
I mean, there are people who love to suffer.
I mean, there are people that will, die by, 11 is their favorite MMO. That said,
good for them.
I have strong feelings about that kind of thing, at least with 11.
Yeah.
Because I may have mentioned this before, but the first live journal RP I was in, good night, the head mod was an avid fan of Final Fantasy XI to the point where she was sunk more time into Final Fantasy XI than she was sinking into the game.
Yeah.
And it got to the point that it was actively hindering our ability to mod. And that kind of was like the beginning of the end for the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's correct for some people, apparently.
Yep. So yeah, with all that said, is very much in the D tier. Interesting, but I can't recommend it. Like,
Historical interest.
Yeah, I can at least recommend people play 9 if you like the aesthetics or the story or whatever. I cannot, in good conscience, recommend 11 in any circumstance other than like just, hey, look at this weirdness and move on. That's it. I do think that's
what we were doing before we knew what we were doing.
Yes. That said, I do think that's where I'm going to put or cut things off for part 1, because we actually took longer than I expected to. I expected to get through up to 13 at least, but hey. So yeah, I'm just going to call things here for tonight, but let me see while I look for a raid target. But yeah, I don't know when the next one is going to be. I will let you all know, but I still have a lot of research to do because I have not seen anything of Final Fantasy 13-2. I am still working through 16, and I still have to write up bits for a bunch of the other stuff. And again, we're probably going to spend a good whole stream just on 14. If I'm being honest with myself. But yeah. Anyway. So it looks like Rosa is doing more Cult of the Lamb, so I'm going to send you over their way. So, thank you for coming and hanging out and all the support and everything. Tomorrow, I will try to get back to Monster Rancher. And in the meantime, y'all have an excellent evening. Take care, and I will catch you all later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The